Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Colerain Township, City of Cheviot Joint Economic Development District for the Liberty Nursing facility here in the township and our annual meeting. We will go ahead and get started here with attendance. Mr. Voss?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
And I am here as well. We do have a couple of openings on the board, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the agenda. But in the meantime, why don't we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then also a moment of silence, a moment of meditation. Thank you. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is a motion to approve the minutes of the November 15th, 2022 annual meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved. I will second.
All right. Mr. Voss?
Please. I moved
A
on.
motion and second. Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Okay. Then we'll go to roll call. Mr. Voss?
Yes.
Mr. Wallert?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. Okay. Next item is citizen comment. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to the J.E.D. board? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next section on the agenda is new business, and the first item is a discussion about board vacancies. I referenced this just a moment ago. There are supposed to be two additional members to the board, both of whom are representatives of Liberty Nursing. One is supposed to be from management at Liberty, and the other is supposed to be an employee of Liberty. They've had some turnover in both of the people who were appointed to those boards are no longer with the company. So we have reached out to them and are seeking additional nominations, and I am hopeful that we will be able to fill those positions and get back up to full speed here at our next meeting. Any additional discussion?
None.
Very well. The next item of new business is a discussion of the 2022 audit. There were two findings that came from the Auditor of State related to the J.E.D. The first was a finding that the annual report for the J.E.D. was filed late. And the second item is that the J.E.D. itself does not have its own public records policy, even though the City of Cheviot has its own policy and Colerain Township has its own policy. In the eyes of the auditors, it was insufficient that we would follow either or both of those policies for records requests. So their guidance to us is that this board adopt a policy. We included in the board packet some samples that the City of Cheviot has adopted for the J.E.D.s that it manages for Green Township, as well as a link to a sample policy provided by the Ohio Attorney General. So with sort of that setup, I'd like to open the floor to discussion about the board's thoughts about establishing a public records policy that is specific to the J.E.D.
Yeah, with regard to the tardiness of the report, how late were we with that?
So the report was filed April 29th of 2022 when it should have been filed roughly at the end of February. It's 60 days after the end of the fiscal year.
Do we file that? Do we both file that? How does that work?
So it's the city of Cheviot actually that prepares the report and files it with the state.
Okay, and do we sign off, I guess?
I don't think that we have in the past. It's, in the documents that set up the JED, it sets up Cheviot as the manager of the JED on behalf of the township. And as a result of all of that work that they do for us, which is substantial, they earn a quarterly fee, but with that, they have a set of responsibilities, including filing the statements. I certainly would be open to having a more collaborative process in preparing and submitting the financial statements if that's of interest to the rest of the board.
Well, let's say Cheviot.
I mean, Cheviot needs to file the proper report.
So
They
I think.
give you a report every year, don't they, or every quarter,
So there's a quarterly report that the fiscal staff prepares and submits to the township, and that's what we use in order to make payments to Liberty, consistent with the overall agreement. I think my understanding is that there was some significant staff turnover in the finance function at Cheviot right around the time that the report was due, and that is the reason that.
Oh, yeah, I'm not interested in throwing anybody under the bus. What I am interested is getting maybe a more outlined policy going forward that we can.
they file this report every year on time before this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the girl in the auditor's office was dying, has cancer.
Oh,
right?
really? Yeah.
She's since retired.
Sorry to hear that.
I guess I have filled her place. That's the only reason I can think.
No, it's not. It's a one-off. I'm not trying to. That's. But I think that it's a little unfair to expect them Cheviot to file it and not us at least to sign off on it. Or I don't know. Maybe that's something that you can discuss with Cheviot. I just think we're both in the same boat, and I think we both ought to share responsibility.
I would agree with that. If you sign off, you know it's been filed.
Right. That's right. So I don't know how that would look like. Now, with regard to the records requests, I don't know that Cheviot quite gets the number of records requests we may get. Who fills those? Does Cheviot, as the JED manager, fill those records requests?
I expect that the records request is going to be filled by whichever entity receives it. And what we have done in the past, when we received records requests that are specific to the JED, is we have responded to them consistent with the township's policy.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So my concern is that we don't have that written down anywhere. That's been assumed that if Cheviot gets it, they'll fill it. If we get it, we'll fill it. And we're kind of in an awkward position because we have different records retention policies, and and I think ours is good, and I think Cheviot's good, but the Attorney General has another one. I tend to want to go with what the Attorney General says because he makes the rules, but at the same time, I don't want you guys working under two different rules and us working under two different sets of rules either. So I guess my question is, what's the magic sauce in order for this to be? In order for us to fulfill our obligations for the records request, and at the same time, not get confused with all kinds of red tape.
Well, it's certainly, I agree that it makes a lot of sense for us to agree on a policy. Since Cheviot is the manager of the JED, it seems to me that it would make the most sense if the JED policy were to mirror Cheviot's policy, so that when they are responding to requests as the manager, they don't have one set of staff operating under two different sets of rules.
Right. But then if the request comes to Colerain and we're filling it, and we're using.
Then we would be using two different sets of rules.
Right. Can we do this sounds like it's probably not going to be acceptable, but if the request comes to Cheviot, they use Cheviot's rules, and if they come to us, we use Colerain's rules.
I think if this board were to adopt that policy, then that would be just fine.
Well, I think we definitely need to draft a policy and how we're gonna address it.
I mean, I don't want to complicate their lives, and I sure don't want to complicate our lives. I think that the first step is indicating whose responsibility it is, and I think it makes common sense that it's the responsibility of to whom it was requested, and then if we could use our rules and they could use their rules, that'd be great.
Well, if that's the preference of the board, staff certainly could draft a policy that says that for consideration at our next meeting.
I would think that our policy for public records is pretty much in compliance with state law.
Oh, yeah.
Because the auditor, every couple of years, they audit us, and we're pretty much in compliance.
As does ours. I don't know if there's different, I mean, when you start getting to the records retention policy, you get down to the weeds of, what is the policy of handwritten notes? What is the policy of tax? And I think that I bet that if you really dig down deep, it may be slightly different and both still be in compliance.
What does Green Township do for public records?
I'm not actually familiar with the township's records policy. The documents that are in the packet are the records policies that Green Township has for the JEDs that Cheviot manages on their behalf.
Right. And I go to those meetings. They pretty well got everything written down there.
Yeah.
I just, what I want to avoid is a situation where we get, I don't know how many we're up to this year, 800 plus records requests. We're kind of an outlier, where we've got Colerain employees trying to fill these records requests, and they're trying to be productive, and they fill a township records request using a policy, using the township policy, but then fill a J.E.D. request using the township policy where it may be slightly different somewhere. And then we get in, I don't know, that if we're in legal jeopardy then, because we haven't complied to the policy, we've complied to the other policy. So I don't.
Green Township definitely has a policy addressing public records. It's right here in their packet. It doesn't, I don't know if it spells out who's responsible to answer.
Well, from an administrative standpoint, I certainly think that it would be the most straightforward if the JED board were to adopt a policy saying that the entity that receives the records request follows its own records policy. That way we aren't having to train staff on two different sets of rules depending on what type of request it is.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, let's.
Keep it simple.
So let's. I don't know. Do you need a motion?
No, I mean, this is just an item for discussion.
Okay.
And what staff will do is go ahead and draft that policy and have it ready for the board's consideration at our next meeting.
Okay. Fantastic. I agree 1,000%.
Great. The next item on our agenda is an action item. This is a review and approval of the quarterly financial statements. These are in your board packet going back to the fourth quarter of 2022 and going through the the third quarter of 2023. There is one thing that I would like to highlight. In the fourth quarter of, make sure I get this exactly right here. In the fourth quarter of 2022, I think it was a similar situation to what we were talking about earlier with the audit. There was an overpayment to the JED of $18,314.64. And staff recognized that, and we did some additional research and determined that that was an overpayment, and that was corrected on the statements for the second quarter of 2023. So From the second quarter of 2023 forward, everything is operated exactly the way it's supposed to, and that irregularity, I guess, in the fourth quarter of 2022 has been addressed. So all three parties are square on the financial statements, and I guess I would move approval of the quarterly financial statements.
I'll motion to approve the quarterly financial statements as provided in the board packet.
Second.
Very good. Mr. Voss?
Yes.
Mr. Wallert?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. Next item on the agenda is an opportunity for any board member comments or discussion on any items that are not on the agenda.
I have no items.
No, I'm concerned about getting the Liberty representative on here. I don't know that that's as easy as it's.
Yes, so we have reached out to Liberty several times now, and to multiple individuals, and we'll continue to do that until we get them back up to speed with their role in the board.
So is that a requirement? How long can that stay vacant?
That I don't know. I mean, obviously, when we tried to get together back in December, I was sick, and therefore we didn't have a quorum. We had to reschedule for this evening. So having a full complement to our board would certainly make things easier going forward.
Okay, I tried to find and I couldn't find. So I sit on several school boards where, yeah, you need a quorum, but also you need the sponsors of the schools want a certain number of people, or the spot you get dinged by the sponsor. So I want to make sure that we fill what we need to fill, and I'm sure it's written somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
We can look into that.
Could that be an issue in the future for an audit or something, that they're not represented?
Presumably at some point. I mean, it's a three-party agreement, and therefore the board should be made up of representatives of all three parties.
But that's all I have.
Do you think they want to be here? For their own benefit.
I agree. Yeah.
I know in Green Township they show up.
Okay. Any other items for discussion before we adjourn?
None for me.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Voss?
Yes.
Mr. Wallert?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, and our meeting adjourns at 20 after 5. Thank you, everyone.
Call to order the Colerain Township Community Improvement Corporation, January 23rd, 2024, 5:30 meeting. First, we'll start with roll call.
Ms. Orge? Here. Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Wallert?
Here.
Mr. McElravy?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Moravec?
Here.
And I am here.
All right, we have a number of items here with regard to electing of members, appointment of members that are coming up with number 2, 3, and 4. So first, we have election of president. Are there any? Is there any interest for election of president? So,
President now, right?
yeah, I'm willing to do it again.
I'll say Matt Waller.
All right, anyone else? Any other?
I will second Matt Waller.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for me to remain president. We'll do a roll call. I will abstain.
Ms. Orge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wallert has abstained. Mr. McElravy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Moravec?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
All right, next we have vice president. Are there any motions for vice president?
Who's vice president now?
I think it was you.
Yeah, currently you serve as vice president.
Oh, me? Who elected me?
Yeah.
You did.
I nominate Kathy Ulrich to continue.
Now I remember. Okay.
Well, you would just run the meeting in the absence of the president.
Right.
I'll second that if you accept. Okay. We'll call for a vote.
Ms. Ulrich. Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Wallet.
Yes.
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Morvick.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Now we have the appointment of township members. So I pull that up. So the staff, this is from David Miller, Director of Development, appointment of township official members. The staff recommends the following appointments: David Miller, Jeff McElravy, Justin Becker, and Dave Morovic. Morvick. Gosh, I'm challenged by it. Yeah. It's currently constructed. CIC is a 7-member board that is reorganized every 2 years following a trustee election. This year, staff is recommending that all existing roles be reappointed with the same individuals from the prior year. Of the 7 members, 3 are the Board of Trustees, and the other 4 are appointed by the trustees. Are there motions with regard to this?
I motion that we would appoint David Miller, Jeff McElravy, Justin Becker, and Dave Moravec to the positions as detailed in the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Ulrich.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Wallet.
Yes?
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Morvick.
Yes.
And yes.
All right, I just lost my computer here. All right, now we have the election of secretary. And I believe, I believe you currently serve that role, right? Okay. So are there any motions? Mr. Becker? It's Becker, right? Yeah.
I motion that we would,
Justin's-
I motion that we would appoint Justin Becker as Secretary of the Colerain Community Improvement Corporation.
I'll second that.
Good, somebody else can start.
Yeah. All right, any discussion?
None.
None.
All right?
Ms. Ulrich.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Wallet.
Yes?
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Morvick.
Yes.
And I abstain.
All right, that passes. Next, the election of the treasurer. Currently, Mr. McElravy, I believe, serves as treasurer.
I'll make a motion that we accept Mr. McElravy as a treasurer again.
I will second it.
Any discussion?
None.
All right, we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Ulrich. Yes. Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Wallet.
Yes.
Mr. McElravy.
Abstain?
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Morvick.
Yes.
And yes.
All right, that passes. Election of executive director. Currently, Mr. Miller serves as executive director. Are there any motions at this point?
I motion that we would have Mr. Miller be the Executive Director.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
None.
Hearing none, we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Ulrich.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Wallet.
Yes.
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
I guess. I'll abstain.
Mr. Morvick.
I guess.
And I also guess.
All right. So, moving on to number 8, you've been provided with the minutes from the December 12th, 2023 meeting. Are there any motions at this point?
I motion that we approve the minutes of the December 12th, 2023 meeting.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion with regard to that motion?
None.
All right, we'll call a vote.
Ms. Ulrich. Yes. Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Wallet.
Yes.
Mr. McElravy.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Morvick.
Yes.
And yes. And I have these for you to sign at the end.
Okay, thank you. That passes as well. On the new business, we have a number of items.
Are you guys going to allow public comment? I didn't see it on the agenda, and I thought that was unusual for you all.
All right, the first item is item A, a motion to accept the transfer of property to CIC. That's parcel 510008-11865, Colerain Road Training Center.
I motion that we accept the transfer of the property described by Mr. Wallert.
I'll second.
All right, so I don't know if Mr. Miller, you want to lead us in this?
No, later tonight, the Colerain Township Board of Trustees will be considering the transfer to the CIC. And so in the event that the trustees would approve that,
then the CIC would accept that, and then we would take it to market and see if we can find an acceptable offer to provide it to the public for sale.
So just for clarification's sake, we have, a brochure that's kind of worked up, or a flyer, that asks for a request for proposals that and the benefit of doing it through the CIC is we can, if we don't like any of them, we don't need to accept any of them. And it's one of those things where I think, is it 8 acres?
It's about 8.7 or something like that.
8.7 acres, and it's a sizable piece of property that could promote interest from places that we don't even know. And that would be the benefit from going through the CIC. Is there any question or other discussion with regard to that?
I would just mention that property's been an expense for the township for a long time, and I think it's the right thing to do to unload land that we're not using or don't have a purpose for.
And I also point out that I know that fire and EMS have devoted significant amount of their own sweat equity keeping that building going. Once you have issues with a roof and something like that, it just seems like it just never gets fixed. But I mean, I don't want it to seem like we're just kind of not recognizing the work that fire did there, because there was an awful lot of training that went there, training classes, and I went on several tours, and they just absolutely worked their tails off trying to keep it upgraded. It's become, I think, as Mr. Unger said, too much of an expense to.
I would ask the valuation that was provided, where did that come from, David? Is that recent or a long time ago?
That's what the Hamilton County Auditor has it listed as,
Okay, thank you.
$788,560.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may add to that, the valuations that are provided by the auditor's office are for real estate taxation purposes, and
Correct.
the actual market value is probably something that's different.
Yeah.
Hopefully to the good. One of the benefits of taking this to market to see what kind of response we get is that we'll mark to market.
Absolutely.
Perfect. I think we're ready for a vote. So we're voting on a motion to accept the transfer of property should it be transferred or later on by the trustees. Property to the CIC parcel 51002800008-11865 Colerain Road Training Center.
Ms. Orge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Mr. McElravy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Moravec?
Yes.
And lastly, yes.
All right, that passes. Item B is a motion, authorizing the executive director to execute contracts with a value equal to or less than $10,000. Mr. Miller, I don't know if you want to give us a.
This is a motion, as you mentioned, that would allow the executive director to sign contracts. So those are infrequent that do come through. We have some bills that are coming through right now relative to property that we do own, but various contracts may come through this year, depending on what we engage in as a CIC. And so this would just provide a cap at $10,000. In the past, the township administrator also served as the ED with that limit, and so that was just brought forward as a similar past practice.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I could provide a little bit of additional context. So we anticipate that the level of activity for the CIC is going to pick up in the coming year. And yeah, absent this approval being delegated to the executive director, it would require that the CIC meet probably with a great deal of frequency in order to approve what often will be relatively inconsequential amounts for things that really aren't strategic in nature. So one of the ideas behind this motion is to allow the executive director to manage the affairs of the CIC in an expeditious manner, particularly as we are managing the Sears property in particular.
And as I understand it, when the township administrator was the executive director, under Mr. Mills, he had that authority. We're simply just moving that authority that existed under the Township Administrator's umbrella to to Mr. Miller, because he's the Executive Director.
And I'll add that my background would say that this is very common practice, very reasonable request and expectation.
I think we're heading into, as you said, anticipating much more activity. I believe the CIC might have, and I don't have the exact numbers, but about $70,000 in our bank account right now, something in that range. So my hesitancy is it'd be real easy to run through that $70,000 pretty quick. And what kind of items would you expect to have fall into that range? Utility bills or?
Those are currently being paid by the Port Authority and the land bank that is the owner and manager of the property. And so at some point, we might need to manage what the balance is on the account with the retainer with them. And so there might be a need for transfer.
Well, I guess that would come to the trustees at some point if you asked us to consider transferring money to the CIC to fund that project.
That would be correct.
So I'm fine with it, but what is the limit on it? I mean, I don't want to come back to our next meeting and find out that we, committed $60,000 in 6 different contracts to 6 different things.
Yeah. I wouldn't anticipate that. I think that would be, I think it'd be a violation of the spirit that you've asked for.
Right.
And so that certainly wouldn't happen.
And I figured this would get into discussion. I mean, do you see a point where, as we only have $70,000 to spend, I wouldn't want to come to our next meeting and not have all of us know that, we were $65,000 into it or something.
Well, I think that just because this says,
In the right spirit, don't get me wrong.
Right. It gives them the spending authority of up to 10,000. Yeah, I think that matches what we do at the administrative level.
I think that for the purposes of being, we just have to vote on the $10,000, not how much money we have.
Can we make it with a caveat that when you hit 25,000, you call in another meeting or some number that's not set the whole balance?
That certainly is available for motion. We are going to continue our practice of meeting as needed. And so I would anticipate that if there was an expenditure, a contract that seemed to need trustees' input, I think we could easily call a meeting if it need be.
Would these contracts be with different vendors, or might it be with the same vendor, 10, 10, 10, 10?
Again, the property is still titled under the land bank, and so we're dealing primarily with them for...
So that's who you'd be writing the contracts with?
Yes.
Well, I'm fine with it, but, I mean, there needs to be a number where you let us know that you need more. What is that number?
10,000?
I mean, when you hit
Is that-
2 or 3 of them and you're at 30 or you're at 25, I mean, there must be a number there somewhere
Yeah.
that's not 70.
Once again, I think that we have that account that's owned by the CIC, and then we have the retainer with the port right now. Excuse me, that was the proceeds from the rent from the Halloween,
Right.
Spirit Halloween.
And while you might not have that number in front of you, it's, I forget how much is in there.
I think it's
retainer.
approximately 68,000 right now,
So that should settle anything we have with the port for
I
a
believe.
couple
Yeah,
months.
that's gonna last us a little while. But as we proceed this year with activity with the grant application, with ODOD, moving forward on the other items that are up for discussion on this agenda, then I think that when the need arises for us to spend an amount that I think we need your input on, I think we can call a meeting.
What is that number? 25? When you hit 25, I'd like you to call another meeting.
Okay,
Does that
that's
sound reasonable?
25 aggregate, is
Yeah.
what you're saying? Okay,
25 in expense.
correct.
Okay, so at this point, I don't know who made the motion to authorize.
Yeah, I didn't,
I don't think we've made one, so that's perfect. So at this point, I'm going to make a motion to authorize the executive director to execute contracts with a value equal to or less than $10,000, but adding that when and if the balance of those payments equals more than $25,000, a meeting will be called as soon as possible.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? I like setting the number there as opposed to once we get below a certain amount, because, we may sell the training center,
And then our balance is higher.
and the balance is higher, so I like the idea of it spent as opposed to on hand. I think spent is a little unorthodox, but I think it fits us.
I appreciate your support on that, Matt, thanks.
Absolutely.
and are you, just if I can clarify, is that 25,000 with one vendor, with the same vendor?
No aggregate.
Aggregate of whatever,
Okay.
so,
Just as, again, as clarification, we're talking about it being, coming to us after the fact. The fact that he could, in fact, spend $24,999 and then come forward with that spending having been completed, we're okay with that.
Right.
It's when it gets to 25,001 that you care.
You're basically, I don't know, you're
I
basically,
care all along.
Well, yeah.
you're basically asking for the permission to spend more, and at that point,
Right, but the reality is the notification or the communication to this board is gonna still take place. It's not that we're not gonna know that the money is being spent. It's
Mr.
not
Chair?
that it's being, correct?
Well,
I mean, from a practical standpoint, when a bill is issued and paid or proposed for something, we're gonna get notification of that. It's gonna be in the checks and balances.
so perhaps I could offer an alternative that might achieve what we're seeking to do without going through the meeting process. Right now, the township's under contract with the land bank for them to manage the Sears property on our behalf. And they are doing that. In the process of doing that, they have a fund balance that they are spending down that were proceeds that we, not proceeds, but funds that we sent to them in order to close on the property. And since the actual closing price is a variable thing, depending on timing and prorations and things along that line, we had to overfund that closing. So there's a balance that they're spending down on the operation of the building. And they are doing it consistent with that contract, and they are doing that without any additional action from this board. And we have charged them with continuing to do that without any additional action from this board. I wonder if it might achieve the effect that the board is seeking if, rather than to meet at a specific threshold, that we increase the frequency with which we provide reporting on the financial activity of the CIC to perhaps bi-monthly or monthly, so that everybody has a good handle on what is coming in the door and what is going out the door. And then if there is interest in meeting, we could go ahead and do that.
Well, and the Board of Trustees does meet twice a month, except for, January, February. I think it'd be fine to do both. Just to have a item every trustee meeting, hey, here's where we're at with the property up there at the corner. We've got a bill coming next month for $15,000 for something. We need you to approve more money, and then the trustees, since the township's gonna be transferring it to the CIC, it's gonna be on our agenda anyway.
Yes, but I do expect that there's going to be a period of time when the land bank is spending down the,
If there's 68 in there, it should last 3 or 4 months, shouldn't it?
so we are getting monthly reporting from the land bank, and that process is ramping up. So it's, I mean, we're about to talk about utilities here, but, it's been pretty cold, and the Duke bills have been significant, and there's been some issues that they've needed to manage in terms of getting that HVAC system to do what we need it to do.
And we're
I think
giving,
we need to have that reporting kind of run its course rather than just making guesstimates as to how long we're going to be able to cash flow off of the balance that's sitting at the land bank right now.
it sounds like we're throwing another 25 at the 68, which brings it up to 93,000. If there's 68 and whatever the balance is that the port's holding to apply to utility bills and other maintenance items, did we say that was around 68,000? Did you say that?
I think that was the amount at closing, and there have been expenses since then, and there's a lag in the reporting that comes from the land bank to us about those expenses. So, I can't give you a good number as we sit here tonight.
I mean, if we find out how much it is, and we'll have to fund it.
Well, sure. But, what we're talking about here is the signature authority for contracts for the executive director rather than the overall expenses of the CIC.
But besides paying an auditor and the Sears property, I mean, what else do we have going on right now?
So there isn't a whole lot of activity for the CIC. There's the standard things you mentioned, what we have to pay to prepare our financial statements for our accountants. There's also, directors and officers insurance and things along that line that are just, the annual operating expenses of the organization. It doesn't total a whole lot. The ask with this motion is not to allocate any of the funds that are sitting in the CIC bank account to the Sears property. It's not to allocate any funds to the Sears property. It's to give the executive director the authority to sign off on contracts that are less than $10,000.
Which I think we've agreed with an aggregate total of 25, and then come back and ask for more. I think that's what Matt's, did I understand your motion?
Yeah, that was the motion I made. And look, this is, I think this is kind of a moving target. I mean, you could come back in 3 weeks and say, this is why this doesn't work.
Sure, and we could get a report from the land bank tomorrow and be past 25,000 and need to meet again next week.
And I think that that's just something that
That's something that I think we should meet on if we get that report. So,
yeah, I think that's, look, this is, we haven't done this. This is uncharted ground for us. I'd rather meet more often than less. I don't anticipate a bunch of $10,000 checks coming out. But I understand the point of, hey, we've got whatever, $77,000 in there, and I don't want to wake up with it all spent one month. And the other thing to point out is that, so there are 7 members of this board. So in order to qualify for a meeting, there would have to be a quorum. 4. There's 3 trustees. So I don't know if that changes the calculus at all either.
well, and everybody here except Dave works in this building, so,
And I work within 100 yards.
yeah. So, I mean, we can always have another meeting. I just, as we move through this process, and I'm not trying to do anything, but, we're down to $70,000 in that account, and I don't want to have our next meeting and go, oh, the account's empty, we have an emergency now. So I'm going to agree with Matt on holding it at, when it gets to 25, call another meeting. When's our next meeting? February 13th?
That would be the next trustee meeting.
Yeah, we can schedule a CIC meeting that day.
We could?
Sure.
All right, is there any more discussion? Look, I know this creates inconveniences for people, and this, it's one of those things when you create a policy and you look at it and you're like, yeah, not what I wanted to accomplish, and we may have to punt and revise it. If that makes sense. At this point, I think we can call for a vote. And we're voting on the amended motion to authorize the executive director to execute contracts with a value equal to or less than $10,000, and the calling of a meeting when and if the aggregate balance spent is over $25,000.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Mr. McElravy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Morvick?
Yes.
And yes.
All right, that passes. I don't know if, are we on a hard time count here for the trustee meeting, or can we go over?
Well, there are, two pretty important.
Right, that's why I'm
items for us
asking.
to discuss here. The Board of Trustees is scheduled to start its meeting in 3 minutes.
Right, that's why I'm asking. Are we on a? Mr. Solomon, we can keep going? Sure. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're doing everything kosher. All right, and you're right, we have a couple very, very important things. So item C then is a motion to allow the executive director to accept director and officer's insurance policy with the Ohio plan. I don't know, Mr. Miller or McElravy?
I make a motion, we allow the executive director to accept D&O insurance policy with the Ohio plan.
I will second that.
All right, and the rationale on this is that Highland has prepared an attached policy, which is in your meeting packet, for the CIC to have the Ohio plan provide directors and officers insurance coverage for the current fiscal year. There are no changes to the premium or coverage from 2023. The total cost for all to be covered is $1,029. Is there any discussion with regard to that motion?
None.
Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Mr. McElravy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Morvick?
Yes.
And yes.
All right, that passes, and now we are to something that I've spent quite a bit of time already looking into. The discussion and direction for utilities at Sears. So Duke Energy actually called us and the land bank to see.
Correct that, it was the Port Authority.
Port Authority, sorry. Yeah, not Port Authority. To see if there was a desire to turn off and or disconnect utilities from the Sears site. A review of the existing operating agreement for all parties at the mall indicates this would be allowed. Staff wanted to take this request to the full CIC board for discussion and gain direction on any potential next steps.
And Mr. Chair, if I may
Yes.
add, Mr. Schaus is here from the land bank, as is Captain Walsh from our fire department.
Okay, so I don't know if we have questions. To me, the concerns are, do we have some type of liability to the rest of the mall? Are we worried about pipes freezing? I know I've heard from several citizens concerns about mold, which, I don't know that mold really comes around in the winter, but who knows? And what are the risks and rewards for this, I guess? So I don't know if we want to.
So, Mr. President,
Yeah.
I had invited Ron Schaus from the Land Bank
Okay.
to attend, just to give us a brief insight into his experience with buildings that he manages for them and what he's experienced in the past with the buildings that they have pursued demolition on.
Okay.
So, if, Mr. Schaus, if you could just again give us quickly what your experience has been with cutting off the utilities.
Thank you so much for coming out. Appreciate it.
You might need to turn on the
Really
mic.
appreciate you guys and everything you do, and we're happy to be here in Colerain Township, helping out too as well. I'm open for any questions that you might want to add to me, and hopefully I can answer to your satisfaction.
What's it going to do? I've been in the mall many times in my life. There's an opening between Sears and the main body of the mall. If we were to shut off the utilities, that part of the building's going to become very cold. There's the roller door that pulls down to separate Sears from the mall has got 1.5 inch hard plastic strap, and then there's an inch gap, and to every other strap there's a 1 inch gap. It's going to chill off the mall very quickly if we don't build a temporary
You would have to do a
fireproof.
temporary wall.
Right.
If we would shut the utilities down to keep that from, infiltrating back into the mall area.
And one of my other concerns, and this might not be your area, is I think we better let our insurance carrier know that we intend to do that, because if vacant buildings tend to catch on fire for whatever reason. And
Absolutely.
what happens to the mall if if there's a fire and there's smoke damage at the mall and our insurance carrier says, what, you turned off the fire suppression? You know, we're not covering you. So I think we need to get something in writing from our insurance carrier first.
Right. Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. You know, like I said, if you're going to shut down the utilities and shutting down the sprinkler systems, you're going to need your fire department's okay on this, and the insurance and so on and so forth, because there would be a liability, no doubt. The other part of it is continuing to spend all that money in heating and HVAC stuff. Now, I kind of can give you the synopsis of what we have done up to that point, and you may have heard this through David. You know, we came in, I turned all the lights, majority of the lights off, left some security lighting on to alleviate some of that cost too. We had to bring in HVAC. Well, first we had to bring them back in when the Halloween store was there, didn't have AC. It was complaining it was a breach of contract, so we had to get the AC up and running. At that time, when that weather changed into the cold weather, we had to get the boiler systems up. There's 2 main boilers in that section. Operates 2 quadrants of the square, and so it was way too hot. The other issue was that when Sears left or somebody came in, they stole what the term is called front end. And the front end is the complete control of the HVAC system, both heat and AC. It's usually on a computer. It's usually right there in the room. And that's what controlled temperature. Shut it off when it got to temp. Turned it back on when it was below temp. So I had them look into replacing those items. And right now the price ain't looking good. I mean, we're talking right now anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 to get that system, that computer system, back up to control. During this, prior to this cold snap, we had 2 units on. Again, it was too hot. I had our contractor shut down one of the boiler units, again, to save. Open up doors, pop ceiling tiles, to be able to utilize that heat through that whole building. And it seems like it's worked really good. Because normally if you have, you know, my biggest concern there was not just the regular plumbing, it was the sprinkler system. Now, I've worked in maintenance for 38 years now. I started when I was 8 years old. Thank you. I've seen sprinkler systems in heated buildings, Thriftway Foods. I was the maintenance division for Thriftway for 16 years. The Colerain store that was down here, it blew a sprinkler system line while the store was in operation. So that cold air gets up into those ceilings and freezes them. When it starts thawing, like now, is where you usually have the big problems. So I can say, as of yesterday and today, we're dry over there. I think we've went over this cold period really, really well. The biggest thing is I'll do anything that you guys wish as far as the management to help, you know, the trustees out on this building, try to keep the costs down the best that we can. And your biggest and best cost-effective way is just to shut your utilities down, drain your lines. And again, but you're going to have to get the okey dokies from your fire chief, and so on and so forth, because it's a big move.
Right. So what would a plywood, like 3/8 inch plywood, what plywood or what border would be put up at the entrance to?
We would do we would turn in for aesthetics, the plywood, so you could see from the inside from the mall.
Right.
And 2x4 wall.
Okay.
Probably 1/2 inch. Something halfway decent looking.
Okay.
We'll paint it tan, so it looks good.
He's saying no.
Yeah, Kathy, we've also invited Captain Mark Walsh from
Yeah.
our fire department. He has made calls to the Hamilton County building
it has to be
as
a cinder
well.
block?
So he has more specific
Okay.
on what they require on that. So
Okay, just
thank
double
you.
checking.
You would put a wall there,
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
so it'd be more, not,
firewall.
a firewall.
Firewall.
Can,
Okay,
thank you.
So if, in agreement with him on you draining the lines, whole 9 yards, but that opening that goes into the mall, because it's an anchor store, it's attached to the mall. That's a rated wall that goes between the mall and the Sears. So that opening would have to maintain that rating, and typically that's a 1 hour rating. So you wouldn't be able to use plywood.
Okay.
You could use steel studs, drywall on both sides.
okay,
And aesthetic wise, you can make it look good if that's your choice to go through, but that's how it would have to be set up.
okay, so how, well, if we cut off our sprinkler system on being to the mall, where is the closest sprinkler system outside Sears that would protect the rest of the mall? If,
Oh, within 6 feet.
so if ours, if it can, the mall would still be protected without us having a sprinkler system, correct?
Right. I mean,
Okay.
I can ask any other questions you've got, but one thing that he did indicate, the building department, fire department has to agree on this.
Right,
With the building department, one of the biggest things is the insurance carrier has to give an okay that they understand the risk of shutting that down, because there is no fire protection in the building. Once that is okay, then the process can move forward.
okay,
I've already spoken to the building department, and the building department indicated that meaning the fire department is fine with shutting that down.
Okay.
Here's the process they have to go through. So they'll agree with us, but the first thing is the insurance company.
okay, so, we have, this insurance company's been contacted at all for this?
Well, our insurance is with the port.
Okay,
So we'd have to go back to the office on that, and
Okay.
David and I will converse on that
Yeah.
and figure out how we want to move on that, so.
So
That said, I think if there was an incident, and whoever was coming after the port is certainly gonna name us as a defendant in it, because why else are we discussing it and it's on our agenda? We're certainly part of that building.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna get named in it, so I wanna make sure our insurance carrier's on board with it as well as yours.
Well, they are our insurance.
The port, does the
Okay,
port have
right,
the
right,
same
right,
insurance
okay.
that we do?
well, they own the property, so it's their
Right,
insurance
but I-
company that would take place. It would, it wouldn't matter about ours.
But I think if it were somebody that's why renters get renter insurance too, and you have owners that have owner insurance, because you have that.
Well, I'd be okay with looking into seeing what the insurance company would say and, making a decision on it as soon as 3 weeks from now at our next meeting.
My other question, what did you say, 36 years, 30 years of experience? 38.
Somebody was.
Yeah.
he was
Numbers.
8.
Do you have any examples of any buildings that you've done this to?
Oh, yeah, I mean, when we shut down a thriftway store or what be it, we would mothball it. That was the term we
Right,
used.
right.
Just totally mothball the unit, shut everything down on it. Other than electric, we would leave some lighting on, emergency lighting and things of that nature. Let's see, I worked for Colerain County Park District for 16 years, and we had a museum that basically we did the same thing, but it was ended up being a remodel. We shut it all down, mothballed it. It had sprinkler systems in it, and it was down for like a year before we did a remodel and stuff. So I've had the experience. I've been on the end of cleaning up water on the floor from a sprinkler system. So I've been here and there.
I think that our first step, and I'm just speaking for myself, is to contact the insurance carrier.
Absolutely,
And then I don't think we make any decision before we talk to them.
that's my motion. It's just-
And you
Details.
mentioned you've spoken to the other owners that we are the neighbors of, or you've got something in writing from them? I want to notify them.
Escape and Mr. Dabani?
Yeah, do they know that we are intending to do this
No,
perhaps?
we have not notified them yet of our discussion of shutting off utilities.
So I think when we have that discussion, we should have marked up plans on how we're going to close it off, so that they don't think we're putting whatever sandbags or something in there, that we're using steel, cinder block or whatever. I don't want to cut costs on that, because I still want to maintain some civility with them all and be a good citizen, and at the same time save money on these Duke bills.
And are the
utility bills, up and down, because we're gonna be in the springtime, then it's gonna be summertime. There's not an air conditioning unit currently planned to keep that
No.
cool. So are there other risks once it gets hot?
You know, as far as that, with the timeline for the funding and the demolition, you know, we would hope that this would be done this year, and I'm sure that's what you guys are looking for too. I don't believe we'll have any type of mold issues there through that time period. You know, I've had buildings set longer than that, larger buildings with no airflow. And, you know, now if it would be different if you had a major leak in the roof and it was constantly leaking and it was leaving water in there, then yes, you would have some, you wouldn't have widespread. And again, it's just that time span from the time that you guys decide to go ahead and we get the funding and knock it down.
And how often are you inspecting the mall for set this?
Once a week.
Once a week, thank you. That's good to know.
Actually, it's twice this week. I
Twice
was
this
there
week.
yesterday and I went there today before the
Okay, just-
meeting here so I
Good,
could
thank you.
give a good report. There's no water, so.
I just had a quick clarifying question for Captain Walsh. With utilities being shut down, particularly gas and electric, it's my understanding that we're significantly lowering the risk of any fire, since there is no fuel per se for that. Is that your practice, understanding?
Yeah, I mean, once you take the ignition source out, you reduce it, there's nothing in there, it's a concrete building. So
Right.
There's no storage or anything in there, so the idea of having a fire here, but before we shut the sprinkler system down, he knows well, utilities have to be shut
Right.
down for that. And once that happens, then we would shut down the sprinkler system. But it's a concrete building, there's no storage in there, so the risk of fire is real.
And we did have somebody break into it right before the purchase of the building, because I got to go inside and look, and they discharged several fire extinguishers, so people can get in there and do bad things.
Oh, they can. And securing your doors however you want to do it, once it's a non-occupied space, is however you decide to do it.
Yeah, and we'll work within the fire department too as well, if we end up having, you know, find one entrance and one exit out of there. And if we have a problem with people breaking in, you know, I deal with that every day with the port. And, you know, we can go in and, you know, some of those glass doors in the backside and stuff, we can either board them up or we can chain them, you know, or what be it. But that's part of them giving me the management of this Sears building is, you know, for somebody to be there, somebody to see stuff like that happening. So it's, like I said, at least once a week. Now, if I get up in this area for something else, it might be 2 times
Okay.
a week. But I've been making sure it's on my calendar.
And one other question that maybe we can answer the next time we speak. I know that Sears, in its heyday, had quite a demand for gas and electric, but by shutting that off, does that affect the water column or gas pressure in the other parts of the building?
No, it should.
Or
Because
is somebody from Duke gonna have to go out to Colerain Avenue and crank back the main a little bit? Where's the branch at, type of thing?
I think, I'm pretty certain, I'll look, but that is all regulated and into that building and.
Right, but I mean, there might be adjustments.
I'm not even using the same branches or anything, so.
Okay, well, I'm glad you know that. I've made a note, so, because I can see where, you know, a week after we shut it off, somebody might say, wow, it's really affected the water pressure or gas pressure in the rest of the building, because now this, I don't know, was it a 10-inch or 8-inch gas main that feeds that, or who
No, actually,
knows?
I'm not
It's
sure.
probably bigger than 4 inches.
Oh, yeah. It's running some big boilers and.
Yeah, and there's
stuff
probably
like that.
quite a gas pressure but anyway, that's just something you would know and I wouldn't, so.
Yeah, and, you know, we'll keep an eye on that. I don't think it would be. But, you know, those are some of the questions that we can ask.
When we go to shut it off, hang out for a day or two just to be there to correct those, just to be there in case something happens.
Delivery, I can do that. I can bring my
Okay.
cot. No, but, you know, if, whatever, you need that's why I'm here. And that's why the port and, the land bank is here too, to be able to assist you guys in this project. And again, like I said, when I first stepped up, we are very appreciative. We're happy to be up here in Colerain Township and doing our work, in our real estate. So, and I've got cards for everybody, which I will leave for David. And feel free to call me if you've got a concern or something, or you see something, just, you know, I don't care after 9, 10, 11, I got called, because we're called to port, and I'll throw this in real quick and then I'll get out of your hair. I got a call at 2:30 in the morning from the riverboat captain on the Ohio River. Said that the Cincinnati police gave him the number to the port and that he needed security checked. He was bringing his boat in, and could I come out and check his boat? And I had to explain to him at 2:30 in the morning that wrong port. So, but whatever you guys may need, please feel free to contact.
So is the direction then to get something in writing from the insurance company that?
Yes. So I have notes to contact insurance companies, theirs and ours, to ensure what their expectations are with a process like this, if we do move forward with that. As well, we will look at what our requirements are for notifying the other mall owners. I think it would also be prudent, even if we choose not to do this in the immediate, maybe we need to consider closing off that door into the mall, build that out now just for security purposes.
Sure.
The one that they've created that prevents access from the mall into Macy's is rather insignificant. It's not meant to be the protected 1 hour firewall, but it's a mural with plywood. But I think we could proceed this way just for security, and but we'll bring all this back at the next meeting for consideration.
Perfect.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming up here tonight.
Absolutely. All right, we have one more item.
Captain Walsh, thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you. So we now have a discussion for strategy for sale of existing assets within Sears, and there's not a whole lot there. The things of value include tire racks, conveyor belt, and box baler. The staff perform an analysis and assessment of all the items in the Sears building that would be fit for sale, and that's what's included. If desired, staff will direct Hamilton County Land Reutilization Corporation to obtain bids for these items, post these items to Gov Deals or a similar auction site, allow items to be scrapped as part of the demolition process, or find a suitable partner for the direct sale of these items. Any revenue generated as part of the sales would be applied against ongoing operating costs for the site.
What is the legal way to do this? Put it on Gov Deals?
I think we sold some racks.
Yeah, given that the port owns it,
Right.
then they don't have the same kind of restrictions that townships do.
Right.
And so I think what we would attempt to do is follow as closely as possible what the most prudent policy is with that. Generally speaking, township is required to do a public auction for items that are $2,500 or more. They could do direct sale on items that are less than $2,500. And so I think what we would do is work with them to try to come up with some values on these three major items. I have been in there a number of times. I was able to take Mr. Unger in, and he got a sense, I think, that I did, that there's really not much there that has significant value at all. Again, it's, for the most part, it's your clothes racks that are chrome, made out of metal. That's scrap value. There's not a significant number of those to warrant a massive amount of cash value. The other furniture might be the clothes racks that they use, wall units that Sears had their items displayed on. Most of those are still attached to the wall, so they have no value. So we've itemized the three that have the potential to have any value. And so I think, again, the goal would be to work with Port, determine what we feel like we could sell these for, maybe even contact some potential interested parties, and work through a public process to ensure value for the township, and make sure that we could get something out of it other than just waiting for demolition and scrap.
I think that my recommendation is get what we can.
Absolutely.
within the boundaries of Ohio law. with-
Okay.
Is there any consideration, just looking at the items, any consideration for the use of the box baler by the township, on behalf of the community?
That would be fine with me, but I mean, that's an item that you could sell. I realize there's permanently attached equipment that has to do with the elevators and escalators, but that equipment's 50 years old, and I don't know if that's even applicable to anybody else. So I don't know how we would unload those items. But if there's a cardboard box baler like there is at the back of any grocery store?
I'm thinking we don't have enough boxes that we need to bail, so that would necessitate us taking ownership of it and finding a place to store it and then using those. That's kind of my first thought about a box baler.
Good enough for me.
Yeah.
And there might be some local business that needs to buy something like that. So you might advertise
Yep. Publicize it.
some of those items, that some local business might need. I think that's what happened with some of the clothing racks.
Right. Port was able to sell some of those off just to a local clothier that just needed a few that, low value. They were low value to us, really couldn't do anything with, but they were high value to him, so.
So the clothing racks that have no value, are there ones that aren't attached?
Yes, they're on wheels.
There's
So,
hundreds of.
yeah, just clothes racks that have 4 arms on them and.
Yeah. What's scrap value on that kind of stuff?
$85 a ton, it's not much, and then you have to haul them there.
So, I just thinking outside the box, I'm wondering if there's a way that we offer that, if we can, to like Goodwill and places that do resale.
Right.
Is that,
I think the opportunities are there for us to try to work with community organizations. Maybe there's some nonprofits, maybe there's some clothes closets at some
Or a school, for that matter, that might
Yeah.
need a few of
So-
those.
We'll try to be very judicious in, helping people while helping us.
because if we're talking 85 a ton, one of these things is worth like a nickel.
Exactly. Get $200 for
Or
a car.
it's gonna cost you more to send somebody over to haul them
Yeah.
out than they're worth.
Right.
Mr. Chair, if I may add.
Yeah.
The prior owner already went through this process.
Yes, thank
The
you.
Right.
stuff is gone,
Yeah.
with the exception
Right.
of these items that are identified in the report.
Gotcha. All right,
So figure out a way to do it within the law, and if
bring it
there's
back.
some nonprofit that's interested, figure it out.
Okay.
all right, we've only gone 24 minutes over. Are there any other items? Are there any motions?
I motion that we adjourn the CIC meeting at 6:24 in the evening.
I'll second that.
All right, call,
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wallach?
yes?
Mr. McElravy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Morvick?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned at actually 6:25, as it turns out.
So we're ready to start the regular meeting of Board of Trustees, January 23rd. It is 6:27. The opening meeting, roll call, please.
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here?
Mr. Waller?
Here.
Is there any need for executive session? And
Yes, I would recommend that the board move into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22 G8, to consider confidential information relating to specific business strategy and to discuss negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, and in accordance with 121.22 G3 to discuss pending or imminent litigation.
I motion that we would go into executive session for the reasons detailed by Administrator Weckbach.
I'll second.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, we'll be back at 7. Okay, we are going to start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, January 23 at 7:02 p.m. Mr. Baker, we have roll call.
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here?
Mr. Waller?
Here.
And if everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Is there anything to report from
Oh,
executive
sorry,
session?
executive session, sorry.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report from executive. Okay, let's wait for you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Myself and Dan have a little prayer of meditation. I'd like for everybody to have good thoughts and her prayers for our school teacher, that the continued health of her and the protection of all our teachers. Go ahead.
John Feaster was a wonderful community member. I've known him for years. He's been all over the community, involved in a lot of different youth sports. He passed away over the weekend. What a good guy he was. Most recently, his retirement job was up at Clifford YMCA, and he was just a very awesome individual. And please keep his family in your prayers.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have some approval of minutes.
Thank you, Board. I have two sets of minutes that I would ask for a motion for approval for. The first would be from the regular Board of Trustees meeting that was held on December 12th, 2023.
I motion that we approve the meeting minutes from December 12th, 2023.
I'll second.
No discussion from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. Secondly, I have the minutes for the organizational meeting that was held on January 2nd, 2024.
I would motion that we would approve the minutes from the organizational meeting that was held on January 2nd, 2024.
I'll second.
Discussion?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. The first presentation tonight will be presented by Chief Ed Cordy.
Welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Good evening. Nick, you want to come up here? Item I have for presentation is introducing and swearing in of our newly promoted Police Sergeant Nicholas Rivers. Started with us as a reserve officer in November of 2015. Quickly became a full-time officer in January of 16. Prior to his time at our department, he spent time with Hamilton Township Police Department and Morrow Police Department. Since 2016, Nick was spent time on patrol in our school safety unit, working as a school resource officer at Colerain High School, and school investigator and the officer in charge of the school safety unit. And he was on my squad as first time I was a sergeant. So my very first squad ever, Nick was there with me. So, Nick, would you like to introduce who you have with you here tonight?
Yes, I've got my beautiful wife, 2 kids, my mother and father-in-law, brother-in-law in the back, and all my coworkers that were nice enough to come and join me.
All right. Let's stand up there real quick, see if I can make this somewhat work here. Sarah, would you like to come up? All right, right hand. I state your name.
I, Nick Rivers,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold
that I will uphold
the Constitution of the State of, or I'm sorry, I messed it up this time. The Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and its bylaws.
and its bylaws,
I will abide by
by
the Colerain Police Department
the Colerain Police Department,
mission and value statement,
mission and value statement,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
rules and regulations,
rules and regulations,
police department policy and procedures,
police department policies and procedures,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police sergeant
the duties of police sergeant
in and for Colerain Township,
in and for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, and same with your family. Thank you for lending us to him. Now that's the best picture.
All right, Board. The next presentation tonight, which I'm pulling up as we speak, is a presentation from Molly Yeager, who's here from Rumpke, who's going to provide us an update on the new hefty program that Rumpke has rolled out, and I will do my best to get this to stay with us here.
Made me get out my science book reading this.
Hello, Molly.
Hi, how are you doing?
Welcome.
Matt?
See if maybe I turn it around if that helps.
Molly, I already signed up for it and got a nice letter from him. So got my starter kit.
Wait till you see how much film plastic you have. I didn't realize. Thank you. So wait till you see how much film plastic once you start utilizing it. I had no idea how much was coming into my house until we started separating it out.
I think it'll really be great to utilize more of the waste stream.
You know, if I have to be my own visual aid, I can do that too. I can go on the fly. You want to go ahead? All right, so what I wanted to discuss tonight is an expansion to our existing recycling program. So as you know, here in Colerain Township, every resident has the ability to participate in curbside recycling. There you can put your bottles, your cans, your paper, your cardboard, your cartons, your glass bottles and jars. What this program does is allow you to recycle even more material with it. It's a convenient way to do so. I know a lot of people here in Colerain Township as well as Hamilton County utilize a facility called the Cincinnati Recycling and Reuse Hub. This is not taking away from this. If you already made that a habit and you can get down there on a Saturday and Sunday when they have open hours, we encourage you to still do that. But if that's not something that's feasible for you and your family, this allows you to conveniently do it in your curbside recycling bin. So I wanted to speak a little bit about what you can recycle with this program and the opportunity for the second life and what that second life looks like. Again, flying solo here, no visual aid. So in this program, there's quite a bit of material that you can recycle. So think about when you go to the grocery store and you buy your tortilla chips, they come in a plastic bag. That plastic bag can go in there. When you open your cereal box, inside that cereal box, a plastic bag, that can go in there. Candy wrappers, your styrofoam egg cartons, your salad bags, if you have frozen vegetables, when you open that up, again, film plastic that until now, you're putting in your trash can. When it comes to storage and cleaning, think of your food storage bags, so your Ziploc bags, the plastic wrap that even goes around the paper towels, Swiffers. I think many people think those are cloth. Those are actually a plastic, and those can go in here as well. And then, of course, your plastic grocery bags. Yay, we have a visual aid. For the moment. Hopefully it sticks. But think of office and shipping. When you get all your Amazon packages at your house, you either have those plastic film in there, the air pockets, or you might have some styrofoam peanuts. If you get shipments of food to your house, you may get those little plastic coolers, and then clear plastic overlays. But then also when you go out to eat, this is where we find a lot of the material coming in. Those plastic cutlery, plastic straws, plastic plates, styrofoam to-go containers. All that can now go into this program, and you can now recycle it conveniently curbside. So how does this work? So if you want to switch to the next slide. So there is a little bit of caveat. You can't put these items loose in your recycling bin. The reason for that is we can't isolate them and separate them out at the recycling facility if they go loose into the recycling bin. So you have to put them in a new bag. And we're going to talk about these bags, the cost, how you get them, and all that here in a second. There's an orange bag. It's Hefty, made by the Hefty company. It is a very durable bag. There was some concerns, you know, when they first brought this idea to us, we're like, well, how is that bag going to hold up in a compaction truck? It does. How is that bag going to hold up in a compaction truck with broken glass bottles and jars? It does. We traveled out to Omaha, Nebraska, that also has this program, who also accepts glass, and we watched firsthand as these bags came out of the truck unscathed, still with everything contained in it, and they were able to isolate those bags and pull them off the recycling line. So they are very durable bags, which is great, which allows you to put all of those items we just talked about inside these bags. They can be picked up with your normal curbside recycling, taken to our recycling facility, and what's going to happen is once they get to the recycling facility, at our pre-sort line, they pull these bags off and put them down a chute so they can bale these all separately and send them to different end users. The end users that take this type of material want everything in the bag, including the bag. So you don't have to, there's no separation from there on out. It goes straight to those end users, and they can turn it into different things. So right now, these bags are only available at Kroger. Beginning in April, they will be available at other retailers, including Target, Meijer, Walmart, and Ace Hardware, as well as Menards. So they'll be a little bit easier to access at that time. And then for commercials, let's say if the township wanted to do this at their township offices, Rumpke does purchase a supply of larger 55-gallon bags that you can purchase directly from us and utilize in this program. So again, you buy these bags, you fill these bags with the hard-to-recycle plastic, you place in your recycling container. We understand that not everybody's going to have space in the recycling container. Those people who are really recycling everything they can, it may be overflowing as it is. So we've instructed our drivers that if it's beside it, and you can clearly say, you see these as these orange bags, it's supposed to be picked up with recycling. So again, they're isolated at the recycling facility and shipped to end users. So let's talk about those end users. When Hefty first came to this program several years ago, their only end user was an alternative fuel. Basically, they would burn the material and use it for an alternative fuel. We said our customers don't like that. They like a tangible product. That's what they want out of this. So they kept researching, and now they've established a lot of mechanical end users where they can turn this material into drainage material, park benches, plastic lumber, and that's what this material is going to become from this area. So you can see that, well, maybe you can't. Now you can. Quick look at it. You can see from here that mechanical end users are 60% of what the material becomes, and that's everything that's coming from our program is going to that. Out on the West Coast, they don't have as many mechanical end users, so they do look at other things like alternative fuels and advanced recycling. Hefty is looking more into advanced recycling. This is where you need that science degree, is basically you take the plastic and you make it into plastic again that you can utilize in other things. There's some very neat processes with that. There's a company down in Tennessee that takes the plastic material and basically through a process called pyrolysis takes it back to a chemical that can put it back into a plastic product and make eyeglasses out of it. So very scientific stuff. So those things are coming, but right now this material is going to be drainage pipe, park benches, sustainable building material. So that's what happens once you put it in your recycling container. So if you look at the other item, this is the end users. Our end users are going to Meadville, PA, York, PA, and there's a new place up in Northeast Ohio that's making plastic lumber that this material is coming from, which really fits nicely with our idea of trying to keep things as regional as possible. Currently, anything that leaves our recycling facility goes with about 250-mile radius of the recycling facility, and this falls within that footprint as well. That's our goal, is to keep it local, keep it regional, support local jobs, and that's what we're doing here. So before Hefty brought this program to this area, which they officially launched in November, they did a lot of research to see would people really like it. And they found that people would. They want an easy way to recycle. They feel a little bit better about, when they go out to eat and they come home with that styrofoam container from the Mexican restaurant, that they can put it in there. It makes them feel a little bit better. And that's what they found, that people are willing to do it. They're willing to support the environment. They like helping the planet, and they feel like this is an easy thing they can do. You can go ahead and switch it. So who uses the program? This was something we asked them as well. You can see that people with children are more likely to use this program, probably because kids produce a lot of waste. I have 3 of them myself, and before them, my husband and I joke that we never had to put our trash can out because we had very little. Now these kids come in, and I don't know where they're getting it, but it's everywhere, and they produce a lot. So that's probably why parents are really on board with this. Married is more likely to use it than single. Across income levels, you can see that pretty much every income level is willing to utilize it. It does have a cost to it. It's $6.99 for a bag or a box of 20, so that's less than 50 cents a bag. So the income level really wasn't a hindrance. What we did find, though, that younger were more likely to use it than older generations, so that was kind of an interesting demographic. One thing that's not on here, though, is that people who utilize it actually found themselves actively reducing their waste. Trust me, once you start filling that bag, you see it's an eye-opening experience. You had no idea how much film plastic was coming into your house or how much styrofoam was actually coming into your house until you started isolating it out, and how quickly you fill those bags. So their research showed that 2 out of 5 people actually actively reduced their waste after utilizing it. So that was a very interesting stat that they had. So does anybody have any questions about this?
I think it's very exciting.
It is a really great opportunity. Again, if you're already utilizing the Cincinnati Recycling and Reuse Hub and you've already made that a habit in your daily lives, continue to do so. But if you haven't and you're looking for an easy way to recycle, this is very much it. And I will say that Kroger had these fly off their shelves. It's actually the #1 trash selling bag in this area, which is amazing. They're restocked now, so you should be able to find it here again. And they said they shouldn't have those issues anymore. They had no idea how popular they were going to be. But in the first couple months, they had about 7,000 people request a starter kit online, and then they sold out pretty quickly in the stores.
So most of what the recycling is at my home is plastic water bottles and paper.
And you still put those in your regular recycling container.
What happens
loose.
if plastic water bottles end
So
up
a
in this?
plastic water bottle today goes onto an end user in Ohio that will turn it into drainage pipe.
Right, but I mean, if it ends up in the orange bag
Oh,
somehow.
don't put it in the orange bag.
Right.
First of all, we want those to be loose. Anything that you normally.
Right.
put
Oh, I
in
understand, but I
loose-
mean, what happens to your system if something
Oh.
gets in there that doesn't
Nothing.
work?
Nothing will happen to our system. What will happen is that end user really won't like it. I mean, they can use it in their product, but it might degrade their product a little
Right.
bit. So it's really important to pay, just like our recycling program, it's important to pay attention to the acceptable items list. Only those items that are in the acceptable items list will be able to be recovered and returned into a new end use. So, think about the other plastics going into the program. They're going on to become drainage pipe. They're going on to become plastic lumber themselves in another form. They could become fleece jackets or carpet backing. So there's all these outlets for those plastics that we want to still be able to utilize. So make sure you still put those separately so they can go
Sure.
to those end users.
I read about it in the newsletter that you mailed out, and I
good.
thought, well, I'm a trustee, I should go ahead and see if the process actually works. So I did apply for it, and it came a few days later, and I thought I'd just, this is what showed up, was an envelope with instructions and a bag. So I guess I'll go to Kroger's and look for
The box, yeah.
a few more bags,
Yeah,
so.
there you go.
So this program started right now?
The program started officially in November.
And, okay.
And so people can participate right now, and again, in April, more stores will be selling those bags so that you can participate a little bit more easily.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Thanks for coming out.
Well, I appreciate you having me and let me explain how we can recycle more together.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
That'd be good on Recycle Day. I'll use that one.
All right, thank you, board. The next presentation is going to be given by Assistant Administrator Jeff McElravy, and it's an overview of the 2021 to 2022 financial audit and OPERS audit by the state of Ohio.
It's a tough act to follow. Good evening, board.
Evening.
The slide deck that I'm about to share is actually not in your board packet, so I'm going to encourage you to keep an eye out on the screen here. The township recently completed two pretty significant audit processes. The first being the Auditor of State's audit of everything that the township does from 2021 through 2022, and the second is an audit from the Ohio Public Employees Retirement System, and that's what they call an employer census data validation audit. So we thought it might be worthwhile to share some highlights from that audit cycle with you. For the larger audit, the 21-22 audit from the Auditor of State, that was scheduled to run from April of 23 through August of 23. It actually ended up going into December. So there's a lot of folks that I want to recognize at the end of this who put in a tremendous amount of work to respond to the auditor's questions and requests for documents in a timely manner for a much longer time frame than anyone had really anticipated. And what they did is take a look at our processes and policies for all of the types of functions that you would typically think of with an audit, all the financial things in terms of budgeting, accounting, treasury management, debt management, payroll, benefits administration, billing, self-insurance. But they also took a look at some things that are not in that finance realm. They took a look at our nuisance abatement program, the bonding that we have for our officers, documentation for our ethics training and our overall training programs, as well as the management of public records. They did that by testing each function. They would pull a sample for each type of transaction. And they would test it to see if we're compliant with state law and the auditor's guidance and also township policies and procedures. And they ended up reviewing over 400 documents as part of this audit. And as I mentioned, that is separate from the audit that OPERS did. And the total cost to the township, the direct cost to the township, I should say, for this service was $14,000. And what came out of that for the review of the 2 years is what in auditor speak is called an unmodified opinion. And the quote from the report was there. Essentially, they took a look at our books for 2 years and said things look good. There are no significant problems with any of the ways that we have tracked our revenues, expenses, and every other financial function, and also how we have reported on those on an annual basis. Now, it wasn't perfect, and I'll get into a little bit of that here in a moment, but the headline is unmodified opinion. Good job, guys. You got it right. So, in terms of the kinds of things, the kinds of feedback that a jurisdiction would receive from an auditor, there's really 3 degrees to it. There's a finding, and there is then something that's called a management letter, and then there's something called written or verbal comments. So, for findings, there are 4 different categories. There is a finding of noncompliance, a finding of misappropriation of funds, a finding of what they call a significant deficiency, and a finding of material weakness. And that is moving from the most serious form of finding to the least serious form of finding. And then for items that are in a separate document called the management letter, these are ones that have, in their words, a less than material effect on the financial statements. And then after that is the written or verbal comments, and those are items that have an immaterial effect on the financial statements. So there was one finding that came out of the audit, and that was in this least significant category. It's called a material weakness. And in auditor speak, what they have said is that the budgetary amounts were not recorded in the accounting system. And the story behind that is that it has to do with our revenue budget. So every year, as part of the strategic plan and budgeting process, the board adopts a revenue budget along with an appropriation budget. And that revenue budget is used over the course of the year for us to report to the county budget commission about it's a report called the Certificate of Estimated Resources. And basically what we have to do is prove to the county that we have enough money, or that we're going to have enough money in order to cover our appropriations. And that is a building block in that certificate. So all of that gets approved during temporary appropriations. The revenue budget is rarely modified as part of permanent appropriations. And if it is, it's usually just a tweak in a fund or two for some circumstance that has changed from December to March. What we do as a practical matter is we do not use the revenue budget to track budget to actuals. What we use is actuals. So every month we run a set of reports for every fund in the township, and we sit down and we look at it and make sure that things are tracking the way that they're supposed to be, and if they're not, then we make adjustments. So the practice is not to use budget numbers, which are estimates. The practice is to use actuals. And what we were not doing is going back after the fact and updating the revenue budget, because there was no purpose to doing that. But they want us to do it. So, starting with this year-end closing process, we are doing that. That is the adjustment that we made for year-end this year, and that should address this finding. The next level down in terms of importance are items that are in something called a management letter. Now, bear with me here. This is going to sound counterintuitive. But one of the things that appeared in the management letter is that we should not be using the zoning fund to track the financial activity of the zoning function. In their opinion, we should be using the general fund rather than the zoning fund to account for zoning. And this is because the zoning function generates some revenue off of permit fees, but the vast majority of that operation is actually funded through a transfer from the general fund to support the zoning fund. So in the minds of the auditors, it would be more appropriate for that to be an activity that is categorized as a general government activity and something that we show as something that's more of a general fund kind of expense versus a special revenue fund kind of expense. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll consult with Plattenberg and our accounting firm and see if that's something that we think is appropriate to do as we prepare our financial statements for 2023. The second thing that was in the management letter has to do with work that is funded by the Ohio Public Works Commission. So when the county engineer does work in the township, and that work is funded through the Ohio Public Works Commission, the auditor thinks that it's appropriate that we show that financial activity as a pass-through revenue and expense on our books, even though a dollar never enters the township and a dollar never leaves the township. It's just an accounting exercise, and so we went and checked with the county engineer. They did not perform any OPWC funded work in 2023, and we'll build this into our year-end process going forward and go ahead and post those entries.
We have to, so if the county engineer has Ohio Public Works Commission money, and I don't think J.E.D.D Road would be a good example, huge paving project. So if they would come in and that was OPWC money, we're supposed to report that as income and expenses?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's ludicrous. We're not in control of that money.
That's correct.
I mean, so if some outside agency comes in here and makes a public improvement, that's income to us?
And an expense.
Yes,
Well, that's,
it's just a
They refer to it
documentation
as
on
a
it.
pass-through payment.
Yes.
So are we informed of that, or is that just?
No.
Okay. So I've seen this ad where Domino's, they say to get pizza, they'll fix your road. If somebody wins that in Colerain Township, we're going to get dinged for it because we didn't report it?
Well, that wouldn't be funded through the Ohio Public Works Commission.
Okay.
So,
But it's the same general theory.
absolutely.
If the zoning fund can't be used for zoning, what is it there for?
So let me see if I can kind of clarify this a little bit. So when we are, so at the end of the year, we have all of our financial activity in the general fund and then all in the special revenue funds and a capital project fund and all that, right? And what happens is that doesn't just get printed and then off to the state auditor. There's a process that our accountants go through to group and classify these revenues and expenses based on use type in addition to just the fund type. And the idea there is that since so much of the zoning function is funded through the general fund, that it should be considered a general government function rather than a zoning function on the financial statements.
And I tend to agree with that, but then we don't need a zoning fund then?
Well, how would we go with all the permit fees if we didn't?
It's
so that
supposed
would
to be
just go
general
the
fund.
General fund.
I think part of this is on the accounting side of the ledger where they're looking less pragmatically in how it is implemented and more so in how you account for it. So in addition to special revenue funds, there can be things called assigned funds, right? So an assigned fund is what our Parks and Services Fund is considered. It generates fees, but they say because it's part of the general fund, it should be an assigned fund, not a special revenue fund. And I think that's sort of what's going on here is that they're saying because of the discrepancy in dollar amount coming from the general fund versus dollar amount generated in permits, that we should be calling it a general fund on the accounting statements, but in principle, it still operates as a special revenue fund. So this is all about the back-end ledger, less so on how it's actually used programmatically.
In the OPWC, can we make a request of the county every year?
Yes.
And
And
I
I
think
assume-
that's what Jeff was alluding to
Okay.
with changes to our year-end checklist.
Okay.
And we did do that for 2023.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of the other things that the Auditor of State does is evaluate the township's commitment to transparency. It's called the STARS program. I actually don't know what the acronym refers to, but the township earned 4 stars, which is the highest rating that we can get for our commitment to transparency in government. They refer to it as the highest achievement in open and transparent government, and that is because we had best practices in 6 of their 7 categories. So I just want to touch on a couple of other things that were not found in the audit. The first is any issues with meeting notifications or our meeting minutes. They actually commented that our minutes go above and beyond what they see from other entities that they audit every year. The other things that did not result in findings in the audit have to do with many of the topics that get raised at our trustee meetings. Those issues were also raised with the Auditor of State. They evaluated the validity of those assertions. If they thought that it was worth exploration, they did explore that, and there were no findings that resulted from that analysis.
And how many of those accusations were there?
I don't know.
I thought it was in excess of 100.
I don't know.
Can I go back a second to, sorry. So you said we had the highest rank in 6 of the 7 categories?
Correct.
We
We demonstrated best practices in financial transparency in 6 of the 7 categories that they use to measure that.
What is the 7th?
Standardized request forms, since we allow public records to be requested in any format, they considered that to not be a standardized form for all public records requests.
Is that something that, I mean, to me, it's more important for it to be available to citizens than it is to be
Yes, to say
available to
in
the
order
auditor.
get this, you have to go to this site and do
Right,
this.
gotcha.
No, it's better to just say however you request it.
So we're not going to, unless we change that, we're not going to get best practices in it.
Well, so again, the rubric was 4 stars. That's the best you can do, and that's how we were
Absolutely.
rated.
But I'm greedy. I want 7 of 7. Okay, but that makes sense. I don't want it at the cost of communication with constituents. I don't want it that. Okay.
Great. Turning now to the OPERS audit. A little bit about the scope of that audit. That happened from this summer through last month. And OPERS took a look at just about everything that has to do with our payroll system and their system. And they did that by pulling the records for 50 random employees. And there was one thing that they found. It turns out that one employee was reported to them as being, so OPERS has 2 categories. One is for general government employees, and the other is for folks who are in law enforcement. And they found that for one employee, that person was classified as a general government employee rather than a law enforcement employee for a 5-month period 20 years ago. Now, what that means is that we did slightly overpay for those 4 months, and we will receive a credit from OPERS for that.
And I just want to reinforce what you said. The 50 employees that they selected were randomly selected by OPERS. Right?
And they were not necessarily employees that are still on our payroll as well.
Exactly. Okay.
And this is a kudo to all those people out there, your department, everybody in this building. I love the fact that Jeff Baker can say, we are very good on our minutes where you do more. You deserve a pat on the back. You guys deserve a pat on the back for all our transparency. Everything is out there. We are not hiding anything. So I am so happy that this report and all your hard work that went into this.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think that that's fantastic. Sometimes I get a little overwhelmed by how much data that we supply if you go online, but if you take your time and are patient and go through it, you can find really the most mundane of statistics and the most important of statistics at the same time. And I think that Mr. Baker does a great job with minutes, and there's a yeoman's job done on records requests, which are significant, and I appreciate all that.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. I feel like I should give you a round of applause. I think we should. Okay, now we come up to the time of citizen address, and I am going to ask Ralph Gubster. He is speaking on something that's not on tonight's agenda. Okay, hi.
Hello, Ralph.
Good evening.
Happy New Year. It's nice to see you.
I'm back again about the traffic problem with speeders, Southern Drive, and I'm gonna be pretty brief because I think there's other people who want to speak also. But we really, the neighbors, we really would appreciate any input as to how we can get speed cushions put on our street like they have on Niagara. Niagara, I went over there the other day and kind of looked at the speed cushions and drove along it, and their neighborhood, the way it's laid out, looks almost exactly like ours. They have a long straightaway, 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. They have speed cushions. Whatever we need to do to get that in our neighborhood, I think needs to be done, because, and it's not, a lot of cars, but it's enough cars going through at excessive rates of speed where it's not only dangerous, it's just very annoying too to hear cars going up your street at full throttle at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it happens every night. I saw that on Niagara they have 3 speed cushions, and the length of the roadway where they have them kind of corresponds to what we have on Sovereign. They've got 3, and I thought if we would do the same thing on Sovereign, I'm gonna look at my cheat sheet here so I get the names of the streets right. If they would put one, say, between Wexler and Sarah's Bend, between Sarah's Bend and Majestic, and between Majestic and the new subdivision, that would kind of space them out, kind of about like they have them on Niagara. It's something that I think everybody here is kind of in agreement with. I know they're putting a stop sign in up at Regal, and I think it was done for that reason, but really it's not going to do anything, because by the time somebody coming from Pippin gets all the way up almost to Colerain, they've gone already through the whole neighborhood. So, and they're not obeying the speed limit signs now. I can't see where the stop signs are going to do much, because anybody who's really determined to go through the neighborhood is going to blow right through them. The only way to physically stop them is with a speed cushion. I mean, they'll have to slow down, and they won't have any choice. And maybe, once the word gets out, then things will calm down a little bit. And I don't want to be a Nazi about this. I don't want the police sitting there with radar giving out tickets at 27 miles an hour, nothing like that. But some of the cars coming through are going really fast. I mean, there was a girl about a week and a half ago who I was out walking my dog in the morning, and I know she had to be going 50 miles an hour or better down the entire length of Sovereign. She got down to the new subdivision and blew right through the stop sign. So it's like, how do you deal with that? When people are going to just ignore the signs that are there? And I don't think more signs are really going to be the answer. So anything that we can do to get the same thing they got on Niagara, I mean, we're putting it out to you. What do we need to do? Because we really want this to happen. I made a joke on our neighborhood page. I thought we should steal the slogan from Edgewater Drag Strip. They say Edgewater, the race place. I thought we should get signs made up that said Sovereign Drive, the race place, because really, as I said, it's not even the majority of people, not even a whole lot of people, but you figure 15 to 20% of the cars going through, just going through at excessive rates of speed. So, for the safety and security and just the general well-being of the neighborhood, anything we can do, I think would be appreciated. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll keep on the Sovereign Drive. We got Melissa Carlson. Hi, Melissa.
Thank you for allowing me to address you. It's my first time I've been able to attend a meeting to address the Sovereign neighborhood problem. I've been a neighbor, I've lived in the neighborhood 25 years. We live directly on Sovereign. My husband works from home, so he sees a lot what goes on day in and day out. The speed within the past, I'd say since Pippin opened, the new subdivision by Pippin, has been worse than it's ever been in the 25 years. And they do, like Ralph said, it's not a majority, but there is a significant number that threatens the safety of the neighborhood, the children. We have many children directly across the street from us. We have 5th grade twin boys that are constantly out. We are also seeing significant problems from the construction traffic. They may not be going 70 miles per hour, but they are definitely going faster than they should with the weight of their trucks. So we are asking, again, if we could have speed cushions, because while stop signs are wonderful, people definitely ignore them, especially when before the new subdivision was completely open, there was a truck blocking it by the construction people. That did not deter cars from coming up into my neighbor's yards, driving through the yard. My husband and I had to track down an Uber Eats driver, or DoorDash, one of the two, and we went down to him. We watched him drive through the neighbor's yard around the truck, went and told him, you can't do that. Well, it doesn't matter. It would take me too long. So they don't care about the safety or the well-being of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Lois Marizzi. Did I do that right? Yes. Good. Marizzi, okay.
Thank you again for letting me speak. I have information about speed cushions. We have contacted a person who has also worked with a contractor in Colerain Avenue to install them. My husband here, John, he has information for you all about the effectiveness of them. Speeding is one of the major deaths of pedestrians in the state of Ohio and in the nation of Ohio, in the nation of the United States. 27 states have reduced the deaths of pedestrians with speed cushions, speed bumps, everything. Speed bumps were found to have 53 to 70% reduction in the odds of injuries or deaths among children struck by vehicles. That's in the American Journal of Public Health. The DOT recognizes the national crisis of traffic, fatalities, and injuries with a comprehensive roadmap called the National Roadway Safety Strategy. And the DOT announced more than $80 million in grants to help communities create safer streets. I'd be willing to help write grants to get this done. Cincinnati's addressed this in many streets. GODA is one that's really over in Green Township that has addressed this, and it reduced 40 miles an hour to 20 completely. It's written up in the Vision Zero. I have that included in your pamphlet. I have a man that's willing to come and talk to you in March or April that sells the traffic speed cushions. He'd be willing to work with us and with you to come and work with a contractor to install them before the summer gets here. And do the 3 steps. There's a tri-layer. It's the speed recognition, the safety, and then how to resolve it. It's a comprehensive approach that includes warnings and penalties. You can make $1 million off of our street if you just would put up a radar sign. I guarantee it, because they have in communities. Because that's how many people speed through our street. And if you would put up one radar sign through our neighborhood alone, there's 2 miles of streets, and they circle it every night. They just go around and around and around. Regal, Commodore, and Art Street. And with Pippin, it's going to get worse. I can give you the information on the gentleman who's willing to come. He's worked with contractors with Colerain Township. You've agreed with them in the zoning already. He's sold the speed cushions. That's all I have to say.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
I think you should speak with him. So he's works with Indiana. Also, these speed cushions are considered safe for the snowplows, for the emergency vehicles, and everything else.
Yeah, I just read that over there.
Yeah.
Nice paper, thank you for your paperwork. Okay, now we have Carrie Davis. They're all finished.
First off, I was here a couple years ago, Matt, when you first were elected, and Dan and Matt, you guys both promised these residents when they came to you in mass that you would take care of this before the road was open, that you would have a solution, that you understood the traffic was being diverted from Colerain through their neighborhood. And now it's open, and so you're running real behind on keeping your promise to them. I wanted to speak at the C.I.C meeting because I was concerned, maybe I don't understand it, but I was concerned that we're having a meeting tonight and voting on something that has to do with the mall when you guys don't have any control of the mall anymore. And what I was trying to tell you guys at the meeting, but you would not let me speak, was I think that agenda item should have been properly be heard by the C.I.C, because I don't think you guys have any authority. And what I'm referencing, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, and I appreciate constructive criticism, is this contract with Heekin and Gossman to do design and figure out what the heck's going on legally. That contract is for the benefit of the mall only. It's not really for the township. It's for the development of the mall. And so I think that should have been on their agenda. I find it reprehensible that you guys have the CIC hearing the issues on the mall and you have closed off public comment. That's the biggest discretionary expenditure this township has probably ever had. And you actually have a policy that says we will not listen to the public on this matter. So I have a concern with that. I have a little concern that David has advertising microbreweries for the training center when you guys outlawed microbreweries. So I don't understand that. The other thing that's really important to me is, you have this crap going on with the rental registrations. And I see your intention is completely great, and I think it might even be effective, but I'm very concerned of the discretionary power to cite certain residents but not other residents. And when you're adding in, if mom calls because her kid's missing, her 13-year-old daughter's been missing, hasn't made it home from school, that is an offense that you guys are voting on tonight to be a ding against them, to basically push them out of Colerain Township. If an elderly person has dementia and we report them as missing, that counts against them in their 3 strikes you're out program that you guys want to implement tonight. Domestic violence victims are not protected in the statute. So if a woman calls on her boyfriend for beating the hell out of her or her kids, that dings her. So I think your intentions are really great. I do think it's a good idea. I don't think it's ready for implementation at all because you are going to hurt innocent people and sometimes victims. Same thing with the real estate vacant properties. I read up on that. There's lots of litigation going on with that, and we're stepping our foot right in the middle of all this litigation. You have to first determine a property is vacant before you can ask them for money to address the vacancy. So you guys are getting it backwards and doing it preemptively, as if you can predict crime. And the last thing I want to say, first off with the audit, let's keep in mind and not get too big headed about it. You guys did just settle a lawsuit for violation of either public records or open meetings law. You have an injunction against you from years ago where this previous boards had violated open meetings law, which means if you violate it again, it's grounds for your removal from office. But my biggest thing is I am really disturbed that for 3 months I came here telling you guys, I know there's a deed restriction on that park. And Dan, you tore me up, and he screamed and yelled at me and called me names, and he pretty much called me a liar. And it turns out what I suspected all along, you guys had the copy of the deed restriction on Groesbeck Park that prohibited you from building the firehouse there. Typical for these meetings is we say something, and then when we have no opportunity to rebut them, he will lie. And I just want you to know, DNR issued a statement slamming you guys for hiding the deed restriction.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Okay, and we gave everybody 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, now it's the administrative reports.
Thank you, Board. I will pull these up, but while I'm pulling these up, I will invite Assistant Chief Shane Packer to the podium to present the administrative reports for the fire department.
Were you in sub-zero water today? Okay, kudos again to our firefighters. They were at Triple Creek in the lake today doing some training in immersion water.
Correct, for our ice rescue training.
Yes.
The weather's been perfect for that.
Yes, I
And
just want to
it's-
let the public know what you had to do today to keep
nice
them
to be
safe.
in when we actually have ice and not, on a platform that we built.
Yes.
I'm here on behalf of the fire department for the monthly report. In the month of December, there were 868 EMS incidents, 178 fire incidents. The 2023 total for incidents combined was 12,134. In terms of our Springfield Township contract areas, there were 33 EMS calls into Pleasant Run in the month of December, which brought our year-to-date total to 380. In terms of Springfield Township West College Hill, there were no responses into West College Hill, but the year total for that was 10. Significant incidents for fires, we had 2 on Oak Creek for a total loss of $5,500, and 1 on Hawkhurst for $4,000. There was that fire on Galbraith Road, but after the first of the year where we had an apartment fire, and that's, speaking about that, our crews in the overnight hours rescued 2 people from a multifamily dwelling. And hats off to the Engine 26 crew as well as North College Hill Quint 78. That's a testament to our mutual aid agreements and the work that we do together day in and day out. Reported fire loss for the month of December, property value lost estimated was at $9,500. Property value saved, $177,500. So for 2023, that cumulative, that's a 93.66% save rate on property. And then looking at our response times, the average response time for arriving at the first unit was 5 minutes and 5 seconds. At the year-to-date of 5 minutes and 11 seconds, and the first unit on scene less than 6 minutes. That was at 73.8% overall.
And Shane, you may not know this offhand, but do you recall how quickly we were able to respond to that apartment fire? Because I think the number was pretty impressive. I think it was around 4 minutes or less.
It was under 5. I can't recall. It was just over 4 minutes.
And when we're talking about smoke inhalation and things like that, every second makes a difference. So a huge shout out to 26 to be ready to go, ready to roll. And with that being on New Year's Day, which is a holiday for everyone else, for them they were ready to put their lives on the line to save others. So
they acted very quickly, which no doubt benefited the victim rescue, the patient outcomes, the quick patient care, the transfer of the victims and the patient care, and then transfer them to the EMS units and such. So it was a job very well done by our first driving units and the North College Hill units.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for everything you guys do, men and women do. I appreciate it so much.
All right, next up is Chief Ed Cordy from the Police Department.
Good evening, Chief.
All right, so let's go over the month of December for the police department. I have a couple things sprinkled in here for the year, but for the month of December, the police department responded to 3,915 calls for service. That's an average of 126 calls per day. We ended the year with 45,323 calls, which is 1% less than last year, but we still averaged 124 calls per day throughout the entire year. For the month, we conducted 327 traffic stops. The trend of 50% increase in our traffic stops continues for the last 4 months. That goes hand in hand with having staffing numbers and being able to have officers outside of training that are out on the beat and able to do things. For the month, 15 OVI arrests, which is a massive increase. I guess it was a bad month for this. 86 arrests. We had 1 use of force, 1 vehicular pursuit, 1 internal investigation, and we ended with 10 internals for the year. For the month, the busiest day of the week was Wednesday and Friday. No rhyme or reason. And it was pretty steady throughout the entire, with our busiest times staying consistent between 11 and 8 p.m. Last month it was from 4 to 7, so pretty much from 11 to 8, majority of the afternoon of the day. Code enforcement for the year, we had 1,351 total violations, 3,464 total inspections, 1,109 violations were closed. Violations referred to housing court was 93, 348 total abatements. Property maintenance violations was 234 and 26 zoning violations. Henry and the ECU handled 46 litter complaints, 256 abandoned vehicles, resulting in 68 of them being towed, 335 parking complaints, 80 solicitors, and he communicated with the public 559 times. Those that do not know him, that is just one of our officers that focuses on those things. Our impact team, that has now been out for 6 months. I'll give you their yearly stats, so mind you, this is only 6 months. This unit alone conducted 269 traffic stops. They signed 46 felony charges, 110 misdemeanor charges, closed 27 felony warrants, 75 misdemeanor warrants, 138 traffic warrants. During their activities of the 6 months, they seized the following drugs. This is going to take me a second. 3,320.4 grams of marijuana, 129.7 grams of meth, 16.3 grams of fentanyl, 34 unit doses or pills of fentanyl, 2 grams of tranq, 239 grams of mushrooms, 2,061.5 grams of cocaine, which was a result in one large bust. A majority of that was the result of one large bust with the DEA of 4.5 pounds in September. They pulled 7 firearms off the street, towed 85 vehicles, had 33 canine deployments, which is fantastic to have 2 dogs out there doing this, and they assisted the road units with 545 details. Currently, our staffing is, we're locked in at 62 officers still, which include 2 police cadets. We lost 1 officer a few weeks ago to another agency, but within about 2 days of accepting her resignation, we had another conditional offer out, and the individual jumped all over it and came on board with us as well, which is on your agenda tonight. The demand to come to our police department is still incredibly high. So, excuse me, we have on Friday the 26th, coffee with the chiefs, with the police and the fire chiefs at Graders. Will be the first time that we're going there. Graders came to us about a year and a half ago asking if we could go there, and we're reaching out and going some different things with the help of Helen. She has us squared away at a few different locations. So we'll be at Graders having coffee and donuts with cops and chiefs.
Nice.
Thank you for that.
What day is that?
This Friday. This
Friday,
Friday,
okay.
9 a.m.
See you over there.
Yep. I'm sure there'll be a picture of me floating around. All right, and we received our training reimbursement funds for our continued education from the Attorney General's office. Special thanks to Rep. Cindy Abrams for her help on this. I know this is something big that she's really been going after for the police departments in the state of Ohio. We received our check of $51,157.87 for reimbursement.
Awesome.
Which is fantastic. Any questions I can answer?
Just good work.
We're trying.
Ed, I know you brought up the number earlier of the number of runs per day. Do you have a number of what that amounts to per officer per day for perspective?
Well, we have typically on average 12 officers working amongst the two shifts of 6 and 6.
Yeah.
So
that's 10 plus,
10.
10 plus a shift, and each call could be vastly different from needing one officer to respond versus needing multiples versus 5 minutes up to hours long.
Yes,
So
that also includes 2 of those individuals being supervisors that don't typically respond to the calls for service. So it's really the number would be taken down to 10, so it'd be closer to 12. And again, those calls could be something as simple as a parking complaint where an officer takes the time to drive out there and comes clear. They probably are done in 25, 30 minutes with that. Or it could be pedestrian struck that we had on Colerain Avenue that is hours and hours of time that's locked up.
and I just wanted to highlight that because this group does an incredible amount of work, and the work that they do is just fantastic. And when you compare that to other agencies on a per officer, per response basis, it's bar none. I mean, most agencies probably average an officer, or they average far more than one officer per 1,000 residents, which is about where we're at.
Yeah, most departments in our area have 1.5 to 2 officers per 1,000 residents. We're much less. We're right about 1. The national average is 3.5, 3.4, somewhere around there. So by those numbers, we would have 3.5 times the police department that we have, which frankly, we have that much work.
Right.
I will say that while I'm up here, I completely hear and agree with everyone that's here that Sovereign and Noel is an issue. We have been monitoring this for quite some time and talking about it for the last 3 months at our staff meetings. We have speed signs up. That's gathering data. We had them in covert first. Now they're in display mode, and we're looking at the difference. We took data before it was opened, and we're going to have the data after to be able to show the true analysis of what that's going to look like. I have given direction to staff to have them out there and making as many traffic stops as possible along that area. I also provided the group here with as many cards as I had in my pocket for them to be able to reach out to me with anything that I can do for them. But it is a huge problem. We have seen a massive increase in vehicular traffic from Pippin to Colerain.
Right.
And I'm sure GPS is telling people to go through there now.
That's while those folks were speaking, I did look that up on my map, and it does show that road's open. I don't believe that road has come to us and asked, I don't believe the engineer has come to us and asked to be dedicated.
That's correct. Yes, we have not been formally asked to accept the remainder of the roadway there. So that will be an ask that's going to be coming at some point in the future.
And we had during the citizen comment period, we had a resident who went out the door at 7:55 that said that, when that street got built, and I'm all about the speed bumps too, and I can't speak for the other two, but there's just a short process to go through to get those, so I fully support that. But we had a resident come in here and say that, we make promises. Well, it's not even our street yet, Matt.
Right.
And it's a private road, and it is open, and it does show on the map here that it's open. I don't know how Google gets their information, but I had.
It was open, it was through. So the way that the little bit I know about Google, they're tracking your phone, and when they're seeing cars that are driving through there, it's telling them that that's an open roadway. So as they have as many vehicles that are driving through there, that's indicating
And
their
to,
phone.
and to take 30 seconds out of my trustee report, which is coming, Weiss Road off of Hanley, when you go down to the end of Weiss, there's a guardrail there. You walk through private property for about 500 feet, and you're on the very end of Hubble Road. There's a fellow that lives down there that called me a year ago and said, Dan, what can you do? People are getting directions to drive down Weiss Road. They come up my driveway, which touches Weiss, goes past my house. It's an 8-foot wide concrete driveway. He's had delivery trucks back there, and I actually wrote, there's a spot where you can write to Google and say, hey, please make a correction on this map. And they actually removed it the next day. And to the residents, there's a place, hey, if there's any mistakes, please contact us. You might write Google and tell them that's not an open street yet, because it's a private road right now. And once it becomes a public street, we'll have more say-so over that end of it. Now, of course, Sovereign, that's developed, is a public street, and it sounds like you're out there ahead of it with the speed signs, getting the data. And I know you've done that, and your previous chief did too, on Blue Rock and some other places. I asked for it, and I think I saw a sign on Springdale Road. Kathy, is that something you got up there? Or I noticed
We're keeping them locked out there. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Even just any place that we get a slight.
I didn't know, was
there's
that,
an
there's
issue.
a sign right at Springdale and Blue Rock Connector, one of the speed signs. Is that ours or is that somebody else's?
I don't remember that one on our list, but that very well is ours.
I believe it
Okay,
is.
I saw that up there reminding me to go 35, which I'm like following an old man. I don't speed, so.
And one last note on the speeding issues on Sovereign. So we do have a policy in place that we've utilized in Niagara and Menominee. That's going to be the second spot that gets speed cushions. So the first step in that policy in terms of the board evaluating it is to do a speed study. So recognizing that, that's why we wanted to get the speed signs up before the road was open, so we'd have some good hard data to show this is what traffic was like beforehand, which will then help us make the case after the fact. And we're planning on presenting that to the board at our March meeting. So I would plan on paying attention to that. And then at that time, you all will have the policy prerogative to direct us into whatever next steps you would like for us to take.
Chief, a couple things. Number one, you said that Google tracks our phones. Was that a misstatement?
Yeah. Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Thank you for, you and I talked several months ago. How are we doing on overtime? Are we tracking down?
I mean, we're doing good. You can tell when you're doing well on overtime because when it's put out that we actually have a shift, it's usually
People
gone,
grab it.
It's usually gone within about 2 hours.
Okay, and that's one of the things that we talked about when we talked about kind of reorganizing the police department is cutting down that overtime. Number one, it's just not efficient use of funds, and number two, it drags our men and women down to the point where, you know, they have to have that break. So, and to have the impact team out there, I love that. You and I talked about that, and that's a significant piece for me because I believe in deterrence, and the impact team is deterrence at its finest. And I think the more people hear about that, the more they're going to stay away. I always talk about when I was a freshman or sophomore in college, I had the fortune or misfortune of dating a girl in Indian Hill, and the Indian Hill Rangers knew I didn't belong there and pulled me over every time I was there. And they're pretty aggressive about it. And you know, I think Indian Hill developed a reputation, if you're doing something wrong, don't be there. After a while, it was fine and I didn't get any trouble, but it reminds me of that. And the last thing on a more serious note is thank you so much for your response to Colerain High School with the incident that occurred. I understand it was a pretty awful scene. And you know, I don't know how police, I guess police and fire and EMS, how you process that all the time because it's so difficult to see. But I'm glad that we have the folks at EMS, fire, and Colerain Police Department that we do because they're professionals, and just thank you. And hopefully that situation will get better. I know it's kind of in everybody's thoughts.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And, you know, unfortunately, people are always going to ask what could have been done differently to prevent this, and I don't think we're ever going to have an answer to that because I'm not sure anything could have prevented this. But the response afterwards is what's important.
Right.
Luckily, we had two officers on scene, and luckily our fire department was there. And from just what I heard from the interactions was that just the way that the story was told to me, it sounds like our fire department might have helped save her life.
Right.
So, which is pretty amazing right there by itself. So.
Yeah, it's just fantastic the job everybody did, and I know there's a need for people to want to know information about what happened, but I also think right now the important thing is to respect the wishes of the family, and they don't want to be in the spotlight. So, you know, eventually the full story will come out, and probably in court, but right now it's let the family be the family. And thank you so much.
Sure thing. And the last thing I have for you is, I know this was shared with you all, but just please keep Joe Kramer's family and friends in your thoughts and prayers. He's a former part-time employee and a member of the Citizens Police Academy. He passed away a few weeks ago. He started in class 32 of the police academy, so 15 classes ago, 16 classes ago. And he was a good friend to quite a few of us, and it's sad when you lose somebody that's truly becomes not only a citizen that comes through your classes, but a friend. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, thank you so much for applauding our police and fire and EMS. That doesn't happen a lot, and it should. And thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't think.
I don't know if you're going to get an applause.
That's okay. I get applauded in other ways.
I'll applaud you.
Okay, for our public services report, year-to-date visitors for parks is at 256,768. This is on par. Oh, we don't have the.
That was last year.
So
It's 256 this year, which is slightly down from last year, which looks to be just about.
You mean in 23?
Yeah.
Yes,
So these numbers are a little higher than pre-COVID numbers. As we know, COVID really pulled people into the parks. So I also want to remind the board that these are vehicle counts, not actual visitors. So this doesn't take into consideration passengers of vehicles, specifically buses, as well as visitors who enter the parks through alternative forms of transportation, such as biking, hiking, walking, so to speak. So that number is a little higher when we actually count belly buttons. And the other statistic for the year is bags of litter that were collected once again exceeded our target. We had a total of 2,671 bags for the year. And on the heels of that, I have a Colerain Community Association report regarding trash collection, which is pretty outstanding. The volunteers collected over 650 bags of garbage in 2023. The garbage included items such as hubcaps, tires, exhaust pipes, not just trash, so to speak. So that definitely goes above and beyond. The garbage was collected each month by volunteers, and they were over throughout 4 locations in Colerain and recorded over 250 volunteer hours. So big applause to them, and we definitely appreciate their assistance with helping our litter laborers.
I'll clap for all the garbage.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.
All right, up next is David Miller from the Development Department.
Mr. Miller, welcome, and I promised I wouldn't say anything about the Cowboys, so I won't.
Thank you. Please don't.
What happened with them, Matt?
Yourself.
No, I
Your
can't.
Self-control.
Put that in the minutes, Jeff. December was a slow month in zoning. It just probably the weather, time of year, but our total applications dropped to 25. At comparison, October was 74. So big drop there. 3 single-family homes, just 16 other permits, only 3 solar, 3 commercial permits. And what I'd like to mention is something that our planning staff's been working on. David Peters, Justin Becker have automated the application process for our Board of Zoning Appeals right now. So the next one will be the Zoning Commission. So applicants come in, and again, these are 2 of the boards that you appoint members to from our community. And it can be a lengthy process of applying for a zoning certificate, being denied because it doesn't fit within the realm of our zoning resolution. And so they have the opportunity to appeal, and that's where they come to BZA. And so there's a number of processes that they have to go through as they fill out the application. And one thing that's interesting, I'm look at the age of some of us around here, and we've probably watched MASH years ago, right? You remember Radar O'Reilly and his filing system?
Yep.
He's the only one that understood that, right? Well, as we look back in our system, we can find any number of ways that somebody has described not been consistent with a variety of cases. And so this is going to help in the future when somebody wants to look back, because all of this is going to be standardized. And so that's going to help. And even automating this application process is going to make the planning from day one application all the way to BZA much simpler and accurate. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to them on the work that they've done and using the tools that we have in OpenGov. And so Zoning Commission will be next, and then CURB, our Code Enforcement Review Board, we'll plug them in as well, and again, make life more simplified as well as accurate. So just wanted to thank them, give them a shout out. So that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got a pre-clap, you don't get an after-clap. Oh, you're giving him, oh, he's gonna have a big head now. Yeah.
All right, board, and then just,
Thank you for coming out this evening.
These are extra copies. You want to take these with you? Here. I don't want to waste your paper. We'll file this with you.
briefly for my administrative report to respond to some of the inquiries made earlier. There was an update to the zoning this past year in 2023 related to microbreweries that I believe expanded where and when those can be permitted in Colerain Township. When it comes to vacancies, the very first step in our vacant process SOP is for our code enforcement officer to actually go out and verify that it is a vacant, contrary to another statement made during the meeting today. However, to look at administrative reports for the year, there are a couple areas that we like to highlight from an administrative standpoint, and that's our customer service satisfaction scores. So folks are able to provide a click on a smiley face, whether they had great service, good service, bad service, or ugly service. And so those are referenced up here as well. Senior Center always blows everyone away. Everybody is so happy up there, and it's just a nice, refreshing change of pace when you go into that facility. But what's also impressive to me is when you look at the scores for the police department, they still provide great service at 67% roughly, despite the fact that when most people are showing up at the police department, it's either to file a report, it's either to report because a report was filed on them, or it's because we towed their vehicle and now they owe us money to get it out of the impound lot. So usually not great circumstances that they're showing up, yet we're able to still provide them with above average customer service. The other item that I always like to highlight at this time of year is the strategic plan. So how did we do in 2023? Out of the 92 initiatives that we had last year, 76% of them were completed across all of the departments. There were about 15% that we did not finish, so those are going to move into this year. And then there were a couple that were either delayed for vendors not being able to get things over to us in time, or were canceled outright for various reasons. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you all have.
I think you did a great job, Jeff.
I have nothing. Do you have anything?
I don't think I do.
Ooh. So does that now bring us to the trustee reports? Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. The we have public comment here, and just because, which I welcome the speech, and I think we all do, just because somebody's up here saying something doesn't mean that it's true or researched. And I'd go back to your comment about the microbreweries. Yes, you're allowed to do that. And the information that was presented during citizen comment indicated otherwise, much the same as the information provided about the drive-through road to Pippin. It's not a dedicated road yet. It is still a private street. We do not, to say that we have it, we actually don't. I enjoy getting a lot of calls from people, and I'll keep this very short, and I often repeat my number, 513-404-3057. And to Ralph and to the group from Sovereign, I would say, Ralph, there hasn't been a time that you've called that I wasn't over there. In fact, I was driving down there checking it out one day, and you were out walking your dog, and you recognized me, and I think we have a great relationship there, and I hopefully, I'm not sure where the other two trustees are on it, but we certainly want to make it safe for everybody back there, and I'm looking forward to the speed report coming out, which is the first step into possibly getting speed cushions. As far as the audit information that was brought up earlier, it's really hard to predict exactly what your revenue is going to be. And a case in point, One of our problem properties, and there's been a couple over on Laura Linda, but one of them is up for tax sale finally at the auction at the courthouse on February 14th. And when that property sells at that auction, we will get paid for all the assessments we have against that property. Well, that's, and it's expenses that we've had for a period of time. It's assessments we've made against the property for us going over there and towing cars and cleaning up junk, but we never recovered the revenue, and we finally will. And those expenses have gone on for years, and we'll finally recover the revenue at closing on that property next month. So how do you predict when taxes don't get paid or people don't pay their fines, legitimate fines, I might add? Well, that's why the budget can't be exact. It never will. When it's finally closed and you can look back, it can be exact, but that's why future budgets and some of that's hard to predict. In the course of giving out my phone number, I get all kinds of questions. One of them was, and I'll talk to you offline about this, who do we take the police dog to for veterinary services? I was approached by a veterinarian in Colerain that wanted to know the answer to that question, and that's just one of the type of calls I get. I've been over, our code enforcement does an awesome, very responsive job over on Wenning Road. There's a resident over there that runs a scrap business out of his yard, and I know we've gone over there and addressed that. Ongoing issues on Georgiana. Please give me a call. I love going out and looking at stuff. If you don't let us know, then we don't necessarily know things are happening. And I'm looking forward to a great year here up here with the trustees. So thank you, Kathy.
Yeah. Is yours short or long?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll go real fast. I want to extrapolate on Tiffany. Now that the snow is melted, we get to see all the lovely trash again. And so to George Isford and his group, if you can't volunteer for that, please start cleaning up your own neighborhoods. Get your kids that need service hours. Take pride in your community. We are never going to be able to stop these inconsiderate people from littering our yards. I just cannot believe how much trash I just saw right in front of my own house. It really angers me, so I'm going to have to get my boots on and go clean up in front of my yard. And thank you again to our snow crew. I think our streets looked great, so we haven't had anybody from there, but thank you to our road crews. And also, again, with our police and fire, something that's coming up, it's Safety in a Minute, and it's going to be on our website. So they are going to give safety tips in 1 minute from the police on pedestrians, some of the issues that we've discussed, and the fire also. And yes, I understand completely. I live off Dry Ridge, and watching people speed down my street and going through, there can be 4 cars that go through a red light. And I'm going, where are my guys? You know, and as much as I'd like to have a lot more of them out of there, yes, people have got to start taking responsibility and obeying the law, but they're going to be out there. Everybody's so much more important that they have to go through that red light. And again, what Dan had said about when people come up here and feed on camera misinformation, our microbreweries and our zoning department are allowed in B1, B2, and B3 zones. So somebody that wants a microbrewery, we have those zones, please come to Colerain Township. And that is about it. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, thank you. With regard to Sovereign, I believe I'm on the same page as everybody else. We need to go through the process. We need to get the numbers. I don't want to take. It's not our street yet, and if they're still doing construction, running heavy trucks down there, I want to get it in decent shape from the county, and that's always a crapshoot whether you do or not. With regard to the public comment in the CIC, I think this is my 5th year being president of the CIC. I think the first CIC meeting we didn't have public comment, and I said add it if time allows. Today we had a pretty lengthy agenda. In fact, the CIC usually runs from 5:30 to 6. We ended at 6:25. And that's why those agendas are published Thursday or Friday, so that if people do have questions, they can reach out to any one of us 3 up here, or Mr. Weckback, Mr. McElravy, anybody that Tiffany, anybody, and ask questions. It just so happened today that we had enough issues that were pretty complex, like do we cut Duke off or not, and what are the costs to that, that I want to get to the facts of that. And
And Matt, I might jump in and say there was no votes on that. That was just a discussion.
Right.
That same resident said we voted on it. and
Right. I know.
It's just a discussion because we can't talk until we're in meeting, so.
Right. Yeah, I know. And I think everybody made the point about microbreweries, and it was just, I mean, it was almost like, it was the bottom line in 12-point font that it was added, hey, maybe you should do this here. You know, I'm looking for a doggy daycare. I think that would be perfect, so, to any developers out there. To point out, and I hear this all the time, why don't the trustees put a Costco in Sears? We don't own Costco. I mean, Costco decides where they're going to put their Costco. I even got it from friends of mine when the bowling alley closed. Why are you letting the bowling alley close? Because they're retiring and they're done. We can't put a gun to their head and say stay open. We do the best we can with economic development. And the one thing that Mr. Miller, who heads economic development, I think maybe the one thing that he fights against is that what he may do today may not yield dividends until 12 months down the road. It's not an immediate sense of gratification. And I know that he's working with many people now to bring in good businesses. The last thing, you know, we're in this internet and social media era. Every bit of information we get is almost buyer beware. Anybody can can create a website. Anybody can call themselves a journalist. Anybody can claim facts when in fact they're not. You know, I just tell everybody, you know, whether it's me or Kathy or Dan speaking, verify it. You know, I'm fine with putting up everything I say to the test, and it just has become really ridiculous at some points. I remember when I first ran 5 years ago, the first time, somebody put online and spread the rumor that I abandoned 3 children, which I don't have any kids. Yeah, I did to abandon, and some of my students at Elder found it quite hilarious, so they created an Elder Twitter account called Wallert's Abandoned Children, and would often tweet out, "Feed me, Daddy, feed me," and the whole thing became a big joke, which took a little bit of the edge off. But you know, we live in an era of buyer beware when it comes to this information. Thank you, everybody. I see a lot of new faces that haven't been here before. Thanks for coming out. And just thank you for the supportive atmosphere you provided for our first responders, for our administration. Look, we're the ones that the three of us and Mr. Baker are the ones that are elected. That's, if you've got arrows to throw them at us. I know that there's been a lot aimed at, you know, administration and fire about different things. We're the ones that the buck stops with us. They're not politicians. They save lives, or they, you know, they build budgets or whatever, what it may be. Just those kind of things. That's what we're here for. So I appreciate that, and I do promise you, as soon as we get the data back, that we're going to do something with the Sovereign and the speed bumps. And you know, it's all I need to hear is Chief say it's out of control. Yep. That's all I need. And it's just not going to be as fast as we may like, because we have a process. So thank you again so much, and I will turn it back to our esteemed president.
Okay, we go to new business now.
Yes, so Chief Walls is excused for tonight, so I'm going to handle the first few items of new business. The first is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Springfield Township to provide ALS first responder services in West College Hill and Gulfway neighborhoods. As you all recall, we started this contract last year on a temporary basis just to try it and see what kind of effect that would or would not have. In our review, we did not deem that it was an undue burden on our staff, and we actually did not provide a ton of responses into the area. I want to say less than 2 handfuls worth. And so I would recommend adoption of the motion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I'll motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Springfield Township to provide advanced life support ALS first responder services in the West College Hill and Gulfway neighborhoods.
I'll second. Any discussions?
So my one question when it comes to this is the big question. Does it change our insurance rates?
Our insurance rates?
Yeah. No. Okay. I know this because I just paid my auto insurance, and talk about sticker shock for a 6-month payment. I was like, oh. I felt like it was 16 again.
Welcome to insurance.
Yeah.
It's all going up.
It's not $35 a month anymore.
Well, and just the contract's on the agenda if anybody wants to see it. And there's a very interesting few bullet points here. Colerain Township shall provide quality first responder emergency medical services for the following reasons: cardiac arrest, non-breather, unconscious, unresponsive, altered mental state, choking, person shot, drowning, and other dispatches determined by Springfield Township Fire Chief during the course of this agreement. And what that means is we're just closer and we can get to those citizens quicker. And, you know, there's places in Colerain Township where, let's say, Green can get there quicker than we can, and it's just a mutual agreement. But with this agreement, we actually get paid for the services we deliver into that area, which is why it's good to establish that.
That is correct.
So no other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution authorizing the transfer of real property located in Colerain and owned by Colerain Township. This is the Colerain Township Training Center to the Colerain Township C.I.C. So this was discussed during the C.I.C meeting, but just for some additional background on this, there have been a number of issues with the training center that's located on Old Colerain, notwithstanding the fact that we currently do not have power to the building. And so by authorizing this transfer, you would allow us to move all of our practices that we currently have housed in there into our basement, which is currently being remodeled, and then we'd be able to sell this for better use. So I would recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we would adopt the resolution authorizing the transfer of real property located in Colerain Township and owned by Colerain Township. It's 11865 Colerain Avenue, parcel 510-0280-000800 to the Colerain Township CIC.
I'll second.
And I would like to point out that this item, one of the other things that was said during citizen comment was there was no opportunity to comment on it. Well, it's on our trustee agenda, and no citizens chose to comment on it. So, I mean, this is just another example of you know, we let people, it's in here to comment, and I didn't hear any comments. Mr. Waller, did you?
What's that?
You didn't? I didn't hear any comments about the sale of this property, so I intend to support it.
I do have just to trace the history, this was given to us at one point in time.
Yes, by P&G. It was their data center originally, and we leased a portion of the building for a while to Rumpke when it was their data center, but then when they moved into their new headquarters, they had no need there. We tried some creative explorations with, you know, the various federal agencies and things like that, but that couldn't come to fruition. And then finally, when the power went out, it was time for us to look for a new home.
So I remember probably 3 years ago giving Congressman Shabbat a tour there, and I think we were very close in one of the Trump budgets to getting DEA money or Homeland Security DEA money for that to be regional
safety complex.
Yeah, and the building, it's an old building, and I just feel a little bit kind of disloyal here because I know the fire department, and it was Lieutenant Hopkins, Captain Hopkins?
Yeah, Chris Hopkins,
Yeah.
Captain Hopkins has put a tremendous amount of work into keeping this building running as effectively and efficiently as he can. You know, he's somewhat the resident historian in the fire department, and so he's definitely had a long chapter here with this, but I believe he's made peace with this decision as well, understanding that it's time, and that I think he's excited about the new opportunity that we're building out in the basement of this building.
Good, because I know that he put the amount of sweat equity he and other members of our fire and EMS put into it is incredible.
And
Yeah.
And for the public out there, it's between 8 and 9 acres, and it looks like a bunker, and we just have no use for it anymore. So we're going to put it into our CIC program, and we're going to open it up for bids to sell it, to put that money back in the CIC.
Before you all take a vote, something that was unclear to me from the CIC meeting, did we have a preference on how long we wanted to try to have this marketed and advertised? I know that's kind of conflating the two groups, but.
So here's the two schools of thought. If you leave it open and open-ended, there's no immediacy for people to file plans to it because they figure, I'll get to that later, this one's got a deadline. If you put a deadline on it, I guess you can say no to everything that comes in and put another deadline on it?
Yeah, I'd like to have a deadline.
Yeah, so maybe we put I think,
Create urgency.
what is a good deadline for?
I would suggest maybe 2 months.
Okay.
2 months, and then this will be a great litmus test for us, assuming that you all approve this on what we're going to do with the other 2 firehouses when the 2 ones that are under construction are opened. If this process works smoothly and we like how this process feels, then that'll make it easy for us to replicate that come next year.
And I do want to point out, for the folks that weren't at the C.I.C meeting, I think the C.I.C is the most important lever that a township can use in economic development. And by moving this to the C.I.C, we don't have to take the best bid, or the lowest bid, or the highest bid. We could take the best, or we could take none. It removes some of the boundaries that we have. So if, somebody wants to put something in there that we don't feel fits with the culture and character of the neighborhood, then we can say no in the CIC. It's a lot harder to say no up here as a Board of Trustees. And that would be the reason to do that, for some flexibility. And hopefully that money could be used for further economic development.
Okay, I guess
So you're suggesting having put it for sale and close that sale March 31st or April 30th or something, or?
Roughly, and that'd be a good opportunity for us to open bids and then hold a CIC meeting sometime after that to discuss those bids, and, that's
Want
when
to
the
pick
board
a
can take
hard date for it rather than the nebulous 2 months, or
Well, it still has to go out there, so why don't we just?
let's say April
I
30th or
was thinking
something?
April 30th too.
What do you think, Trustee Waller?
No, that's fine. That's as good as any.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
February by the time it gets out. That gives us the 60 days.
Just don't make it April 15th. I'm busy.
I was
that
gonna
day.
say April 15th, just to
Does that work?
Yeah, and then probably what we would look to do is schedule a CIC meeting for May 14th to discuss those. That'd be before our regular Board of
Okay.
Trustees. So that'd give staff about 2 weeks.
Then do we still have equipment or anything down there we need to get off the property?
Most of the equipment and everything has been removed. There may be a few items left behind, but for the most part, we've cleared out most of the items there.
Okay.
And if possible, I'd like that to remain sealed then until that day.
Until which day?
The
14th?
day it closes.
Okay, until the day it closes?
Yeah.
That's fine. We can do that.
So the vote is to transfer this to the CIC?
Yep.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to purchase a item of capital. This is a 2017 Toyota forklift at a price of $25,000. Typically, we approve all the capital purchases at the organizational meeting, but an opportunity presented itself with the closure of Cly Mowers, that they were offloading some equipment that was gently used, and approached the township. And based off the price of what this would cost at going out to purchase this, and the fact that we have a 1995 forklift currently being used, it seemed to make sense to bring this forward to you all for discussion and consideration. This would be valued at far more than the $25,000 at actual market rate. So if we were buying it new, it'd be $50,000, and a little less than that as you kind of go down with
How many hours
depreciation.
does it have on it?
Let me see what the memo says here. The memo doesn't state how many hours are on this, but our fleet manager suggests that it is in excellent condition,
Okay.
and Mike is very well
That's a
versed
really
in.
good price.
So are we good with, well, I guess let me make a motion first. Motion to purchase capital item 2017 Toyota 8FGU 30 forklift.
Oh, second. Discussion?
So normally something like this, wouldn't we have to go for a bid?
Normally you do, but if items are less than the state bid, that's where you have some
Okay.
exceptions.
And that's less.
And I'm fine with the way it's presented. It was advertised in our agenda. And
Right.
people were allowed to discuss
Right.
it. And I know a little bit about that type of equipment also, and that's a pretty decent price for it if it's in the condition you say it's in. No other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
All right, and then the next item is first reading. This is a resolution to modify Resolution 109-2022, regulating nuisance properties. So as we've kind of evaluated this program for the first year and a half that it's been in effect, we recognize that there was one area that we spend a considerable amount of resources, and that is on missing persons, runaways, and AWOLs. Part of the reason that this is here is there are a select few properties that actually have had what we would deem to be excessive amount of missing persons, runaways, and AWOLs. When I say excessive, we're talking in excess of 10 to 15 incidents over the course of a 1-year time frame. So when we look at strains on our resources and the intent behind this resolution, we felt that it was worthwhile to consider adding this. And since this is a first reading, there is no action requested of the board.
I'll go back to the citizen comment again. We were told that this was going to be voted on tonight, and it's clearly advertised in the agenda as a first reading, which I think we've all known all along. Just don't believe everything you hear in the citizen comment.
And I'll actually comment on that as well. It was also talked about in there about the power of discretion, and the police department uses discretion on a daily basis for almost every single thing that we do. So this would be reviewed, and the intention is to not target individuals with missing kids, not target individuals with that runaways, or the 10-year-old that had a fight with her mom and ran away. That's not what the premise or the purpose of this is. This is to target the type of homes that, for instance, we've responded over 120 times in the last year or two, which is down on Birdside, and different things like that.
And if we have an elderly person that's a walkaway, that's not what this is. As we all know, but sometimes you hear things in citizen comment and I actually love this job. I thrive on when that kind of stuff comes. I don't know how you feel about it, Kathy, but I just love it, so.
I don't love that misinformation is getting out
No,
there.
I just love the showmanship of it, and it's,
Yeah, all for the TV.
if people think that it bothers me, especially you, Mom, I know you've made some comments to me because you watch these meetings. Don't worry, Mom, I actually love it up here, so. I will hear from her tonight.
All right, hearing no further discussion, we'll move on to item E, which is a motion to authorize Township Administrator to execute the attached memorandum of understanding with the FOP Gold Unit. There was some language in the most recently approved contract that one of our officers actually pointed out to us, which I commend them for, just basically highlighting something that we needed to clean up, and so that's what this would do, to just clean up the language for everybody. And so I would recommend adoption of the motion.
I'll motion to authorize the Township Administrator execute the attached memorandum of understanding with the FOP Gold Unit.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Thank you for working on it.
Yeah.
No other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Thank you. Item F, resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. This resolution allows for the removal of uncontrolled vegetation and/or refuge at the following properties: 3715 Ben Hill Drive, 2796 John Rose Avenue, 3183 Lapland Drive, 9936 Laura Linda Drive, should be a familiar address, 9751 Marina Drive, 2557 Niagara Street, 3436 Niagara Street, 2817 Overdale Drive, 2984 Sheldon Avenue. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we would adopt the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement at those properties.
I'll second. A lot of familiar addresses again.
And I take all these calls. There's a guy back there at the bottom of Ben Hill that has called me about that numerous times, and I said it just takes time to serve these things, but I'm glad to see it on the agenda tonight, so. No other comments from me.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, item G, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2411 Blue Lark. At this property, there's 4 vehicles. The first one being a 2001 green Ford Focus. Number 2 is a 2002 gray BMW 328i. Number 3 is a 2004 gray Ford Windstar. Number 4 is a 2010 bronze Buick LaCrosse. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we approve the resolution as detailed by Chief Cordy. I'm just having trouble
Yeah,
getting
I
to come
don't
up here. Okay. Is there a second?
No, I don't have it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second.
Oh,
No comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, item H, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2786 Hazelton Court. One vehicle at this property, a 2008 gray Nissan Maxima. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to adopt the resolution to declare in order abatement of the junk motor vehicle at 2786 Hazelton Court, Cincinnati, Ohio 45251. It's a gray Nissan Maxima, 2008, Ohio FJA 2412.
I will second that motion. No comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item I, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3386 Harry Lee Lane. 3 vehicles at this property. First being a 2012 maroon Ford Fusion, second being a 2010 black Ford Fusion, and the third being a 2013 gray Ford Escape. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to adopt the motion to declare an order abatement of the junk motor vehicles at 3386 Harry Lee Lane, Cincinnati, Ohio 45239, specifically a 2012 maroon Ford Fusion 08 Ohio J.E.D. 2635, a 2010 black Ford Fusion Ohio KCE 1798, and a 2013 gray Ford Escape Ohio JCX 1906.
I'll second Mr. Waller's motion. No comments from me?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item J, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 8526 Neptune Drive. One vehicle here, no tag, 2010 black Mazda 6. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to adopt the motion to declare an order abatement of the junk motor vehicle at 8526 Neptune Drive, Cincinnati 45231. No visible tag, 2010 black Mazda 6.
I'll second Mr. Waller's motion.
No comments?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item K, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3204 Lapland Drive. This is a 1988 blue mid-cabin Santiago. It's a boat, Ohio MC 2379. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to adopt the motion to declare an order abatement of the junk motor vehicle, the following property, 3204 Lapland Drive, Cincinnati, Ohio 45239. Ohio MC 2379, registration, a 1988 blue mid-cabin Santiago.
I'll second Mr. Waller's motion.
No comment?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item L, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3526 Blue Rock Road, one vehicle. It is a 2004 white Lincoln Aviator, Ohio plate, JCX 1892. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
So I'll move to adopt the motion to declare an order abatement of the junk motor vehicle at 3526 Blue Rock Road, Cincinnati, Ohio 45239. It's Ohio JCX 1892, a 2004 white Lincoln Aviator.
I'll second the motion. No comments from me.
No comment?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item M, last one, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle 8634 Pippin Road. Here we have a 2010 black Jeep Cherokee, a Texas tag 30603 S8. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion to declare an order abatement of the junk motor vehicle at 8634 Pippin Road, Cincinnati 45251, specifically Texas plate 30603 S8, a 2010 black Jeep Cherokee.
And I will second that motion, and I would just like to comment that since we started doing this in May of 2021, we have removed hundreds of junk vehicles from the township, and I think it's made it a much better place to live. All this does is gives the owner notice that they've got a couple weeks to get it out of their driveway. Most of them don't. Most of them are glad to see it go away. It's just, I think this has been a great initiative from 3 years ago, and it's done a great deal to clean up the township, so.
And I'll just add that this is, it doesn't all happen overnight. It's one step at a time, and, what is it, Confucius? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first steps. And we've made a lot of first steps with this kind of stuff, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No other comments?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Board. The next 2 sets of items will all be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me back.
It's your kind of weather lately, huh?
The snow, yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
The below zero is hacky.
That's right. Not enough to freeze the ponds over, though. That's unfortunate, but that's
Well,
okay.
that's Ohio.
Okay, Board, as Administrator Wickbach mentioned, I will have the, close us out until the consent items. So we'll go in order here. Public Services, a motion to approve a letter of support for the Hamilton County Engineer Flood Hazard Mitigation Assistance Project. This information is on page 64 of your agenda packet. This letter of support will aid the county engineer in application for federal dollars to perform flood mitigation work for Wesselman Creek from Harrison Avenue to Harrison Road. This project will ultimately evaluate and assess recommended improvements to mitigate active landslides and prevent future occurrences along Wesselman Road. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we would approve the letter of support for the Hamilton County Engineer Flood Hazard Mitigation Assistance Project.
I'll second.
Thank you for composing it. I've read it and agree with it.
It touches very little part of Colerain Township, though. Green Township's getting the most benefit out of this. Just that was for Frank's benefit.
Mr. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item, a motion accepting the 2023 road mileage certification, and this can be found on page 66 of your agenda packet. The signed mileage certification form is submitted to ODOT per the Ohio Revised Code. The form is prepared by the county engineer and reflects all changes to total mileage for Colerain Township. And I will note that Savin Road is not on that certification list. At the end of 2023, the total miles certified for the township is 116.033 miles. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion we approve the 2023 road mileage certification.
I'll second.
And thank you for pointing that out. That's just another thing that comes up that we have to go spend the rest of the meeting correcting statements that were made during public input. No other comments?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And item C is a motion to issue a request for proposals for the construction of outdoor basketball courts at 8128 Manchetta Drive. This information is on page 70 of your packet. The proposed project is an installation of a brand-new outdoor basketball court to include one full-scale court with 4 side rims, for a total of 6 rims in mass, to enable small area games and property upgrades to enhance the site. This site, if you recall, was purchased by the township in December of 2021 as a FEMA flood buyout. The property is currently an open green space and remains undeveloped. The project will also include an alternative bid for the installation of a small parking lot for a total project cost of approximately $112,000. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we would issue a request for proposals for the construction of outdoor basketball courts at 8128 Blanchetta Drive.
I'll second.
And thank you, Kathy, because this is a great improvement for youth sports over by the new firehouse.
And it's also, we've got a grant to pay for half of this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so it's,
And what I was going to point out is Tiffany did an excellent job
Yes.
here in including the language that Hamilton County usually requires for community development block grant funding. So we haven't been awarded the next cycle of that, but should that all time out properly, then we would be eligible to cover the other half of construction with those dollars, which could cause this to be a free project for us. So that was great to include that.
and there's a creek behind it, and so just to let you know, where Blanchetta, there was a lot of nice houses that they took down because it flooded the bejeebies by that creek. So this is something nice to put in a flood zone area that's.
It's worth noting when we were looking at areas to improve in Colerain Township that the local residents in that area actually transformed that area of the park to their own private basketball.
Right.
There is a private basketball hoop installed there with basketballs strewn about, so I think they'll be welcoming this project as well.
So I'd just like to ask Ms. Ulrich if bejeebies, is that like a real estate term?
Well, I didn't want to say what, I mean, have you been down to some of those houses?
Yeah.
They were awful when that flood.
The only point I'll make, and as someone who's maybe been around a number of basketball courts in their lives outside, the first thing that happens is somebody of bigger stature, hangs on the rim and cracks the rim off in the first day. Do we have plans, budget to maintain this, or do we have, I mean, the last thing I want to see is 8 rims dangling from one screw.
Sure, we have other basketball courts within our inventory of parks services, so our staff will be on site when they build this and give recommendations as well, just to keep the same.
And we've had no problems with, okay.
I think the families are there to monitor a lot of this activity that goes on there, correct?
The other option is we could move the rims from a 10-foot to like 13 feet. And then maybe.
No, I prefer to move it from 10 to like 7, yeah. Okay, just making sure, because that does happen a lot, and the costs do kind of amount up.
No other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Under administration, we have 2 items. The first is a motion to issue a request for qualifications for professional design and engineering services. This information is on page 127 of your packet. Every even calendar year, for example, the last time this was done was in 2022. With this being 2024, we are in the process of releasing a RFQ, or request for qualifications, for design and engineering services for firms that are not currently on our master services agreement list. New respondents to the RFQ are evaluated and eligibility requirements will be inspected. If deemed eligible, these firms will be added to the pre-qualified list of engineers. And with that pre-qualified title, then we would be able to go to those firms and ask for future work that could be potential for the township. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we issue a request for qualifications for professional design and engineering services.
I'll second. Any discussion?
And a lot of these folks know how to go out and find grants at no cost to us.
Correct.
And so it's good to have good qualified people that we've approved to go out and do such things. Today, I was able to attend the American Society of Highway Engineers meeting, which is always very enlightening, and it's a whole room full of engineers. And I don't know if any of the folks that are on this list were there today or not, but it was the first time I'd been able to attend it since pre-COVID, just because my day schedule has changed a lot since then, and it was really nice to see a lot of old friendly faces there, including former county engineers and a bunch of other folks, and I do that on my own dime, too. So, but yes, I think that'll be a great thing to do.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And did we skip
Could
D?
I
I was
ask,
gonna
is
say-
there an item D?
Yes,
Yep,
I
I
was
think
just saying we
you
just skipped
accidentally
D. I just,
skipped it.
yeah.
It's okay, though.
Yeah.
Oh,
Under
that
public
is my
services.
fault. Yes. Can we go back to that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Item D. See, I flipped the page. That's what I did there. I made a mistake. I apologize.
No problem.
Thank you for forgiving me. So item D under public services is a motion authorizing the township administrator to execute an agreement with MI Homes for snow and ice removal of Abbeytown subdivision. This item can be found on page 124 of your agenda packets. The developer of Abbeytown subdivision has requested that the township remove snow and ice on the unaccepted streets for the subdivision that they are currently constructing. The attached contract would compensate the township at a rate of 10 cents per lineal foot for each snow event. It is also worth mentioning we did have this contract in place with them last year as well. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the township administrator to execute an agreement with MI Homes for snow and ice removal at the Abbeytown subdivision.
I'll second.
Good.
Go ahead. Any discussion?
None.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, and the last item of new business, thank you for pointing that out, is a motion authorizing the township administrator to execute an agreement with the Colerain Historical Society for the use of a designated area in 4200 Springdale Road for public educational purposes. This information on this item can be found on page 134 of your agenda packet. Over the last several years, the Colerain Historical Society has been utilizing township facilities to store, exhibit, and salvage historical artifacts regarding Colerain Township's 1794 establishment. Staff has recognized underutilized space in the 4200 Springdale Road building that would be an ideal location to display these artifacts. Considering the relationship has been favorable over the years, staff recommends the township to enter an partnership which will provide added value to the community for public education. This agreement would commence on January 24th, 2024, which is tomorrow, as a temporary agreement until the renovations of 4200 Springdale Road are completed, with the expectation that a long-term agreement will then be proposed to the board. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I'm going to motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with the Colerain Historical Society for the use of designated areas of 4200 Springdale Road for public educational purposes.
And I'll second that. Any discussion?
And the folks that are there would be subject to township social media and different parts of our employee handbook?
I'm not 100% certain on where they would fall in terms of employee handbook, but in terms of things like ensuring that they're wearing items that designate that they're part of the Historical Society, I think that's an easy thing that, we can require and things like that.
I know we had briefly, but I think what we're authorizing here is for you to negotiate that and hammer it out, and so I'm fine with that. I just wanted to see what the obligations are of the folks that staff the desk on that part-time basis, so.
And they've already moved a number of artifacts into the space, and it looks really nice, and I've learned a lot of things that I didn't realize just by kind of perusing at my leisure, so.
And when you leave this room, you can, to anybody in the room here, you can see the beginnings of that right through the next set of glass doors. So no other comments from me.
Yeah, just keep history alive, and we have a lot of it, and it's rich, and it should be celebrated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Tiff.
All right, Board, the last item is an item of old business. This is a motion authorized Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Transformance Reality and Gussman Group for up to $80,000. This proposal was first considered at the December board meeting, and you all opted to table it for more consideration. Happy to answer any questions that you all have, but at this moment in time, staff is seeking direction on this item from you all.
So my question to you,
Let's put the motion first, then with discussion.
well, before I motion,
Okay.
if no one motions, it just falls off and it can come back later,
Okay, that's, okay.
right? Okay.
That's my understanding, so.
Okay, cool, thank you. I was just gonna say no.
It dies for lack of a second, or
Both, motion or second, so.
Right.
I'm not interested in
I'm
it.
not interested.
Either am I.
All right, well then we can move on to the consent agenda. So these are items that you all have authorized me to approve. So we have a contract with Zix. This is for Microsoft Office. It is 365 licenses. We have a donation for the Fire and EMS Department from Knights of Columbus, and that is an amount of $100. A donation for Fire and EMS from Hair Max Beauty Supply Northgate in the amount of $50. The donation of 10 art tables from the Clippard YMCA to our senior center for the art room. A donation to the police department from the Moose Lodge in the amount of $834.80. A promotion to full-time firefighter EMT, and that's Mr. Patrick Murray at $22.43 per hour. A new hire of a police officer, Matthew Richwine, at $38.51 per hour. A new hire of a management analyst intern, and that's Brody Smith at a rate of $15 per hour. And I would recommend approval of all consent items.
A motion to approve consent items A through H is provided in the board packet and read by Mr. Weckbach.
And I will second it, and I would just like to, I was reading the first one when you mentioned the second one of the item B, donation acceptance, Department of Fire and EMS from Knights of Columbus, Council 16461 of $100, just to make sure I heard that right, and now I have, so thank you.
And the Moose Lodge has been so generous. Thank you, Moose Lodge. That's several a year, isn't it?
Yep.
That's nice.
No other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, we come to the fiscal officer report.
Yes, thank you, Board. First, the month of December financials have been completed and have been posted onto the website with an adjusted bank balance as of December 31st of $47,175,869.34. I wanted to also take a little bit of a dive into public records request. We finished the year just shy of 800 public records requests. So I asked the department to put together an estimate of total hours so that we could get an idea roughly of how much money is spent to produce that many records. So we came up with the amount of hours, which is probably a low estimate, but we came up with the number of hours of 324 hours. So that's about 8 weeks. And when you take into account average income with benefits, it costs the township about $10,368 to provide public records. So we, I think, are doing a really good job of those. We currently have 3 open public records requests, so we're moving along very quickly, providing those records to those individuals who ask for them. And year to date, so far this month, we are at 27 public records requests. So that's all I have.
Thanks so much. Okay, is there a need for another executive session? No. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Okay, we are officially adjourned at 9:09 p.m.